Hello everyone and welcome to another Sovereign Citizen Spotlight. How's everyone doing? Hope you're having a wonderful week so far. As you can see, the Freddy Krueger outfit won today, so that's what we'll be wearing, which is fit because we're going to be diving into the nightmarish beliefs of Chief Mahto. We've done this before, but frankly, he's got a lot of stuff out there. He's put out a lot of videos and live streams, so I wanted to dive into some more of them and find out more about what he believes. Really interesting guy. If you haven't seen me cover him in the past, basically, he's a guy who claims he's a chief and part black and secretly Jewish, but also Christian. It's a whole mess. So, it's pretty interesting. He's a sovereign citizen. He believes he can start his own tribe. So, yeah. Interesting stuff. We'll dive into it and all the weirdness within. Ashley1up, thanks for 28 months, says the time has flown. It has indeed. Rico59 with 22 months, thank you. Nathan, I hope your drive isn't bad, and I hope my company is worthwhile. Anyway, so, yeah, I think we can just get into it. If you want to help support the stream, subscribing on Twitch or gifting subs is always helpful. If you're on YouTube, becoming a member or gifting memberships. Super chats on YouTube, bits on Twitch, and we also have a tip goal. Every $50 above the tip goal is another song for the puppet during our karaoke stream next week. And it looks like we already have 3? Jesus Christ, when did that happen? Bittergrin, thank you for your 150 stream streak. Much appreciated. Alright. So I think that's it. We can get into it. Cool beans. Let's just jump right in. Which video are we going to start with? Because I pulled up a bunch. I'm going to try to go roughly chronological, as much as possible at least. So from what I could find, this is the... Actually, there is one I wanted to play first. This is his most recent video. It cuts off suddenly, but it's got a few good things in it. This is from 2 days ago. It's only 8 minutes long. Like, the stream had to cut off suddenly for some reason, and I don't know why, but we'll check it out.
Shalom, friends. Let's open up this meeting here in a word of prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, please watch over us. Allow us to continue to move in the spirit of righteousness and education. Allow us to be thy people on earth that are beacons to others who have questions about this material. Allow us, my Father, to be able to continue to work your words and your goals and assist our President Trump, all of our other loyal, faithful Americans.
So interesting how he finds himself between these two identities of being this, like, right-wing Republican MAGA guy, but also on the same hand trying to be this, like, indigenous person hating the federal government. It's so strange. Isn't he super anti-Semitic too? He is what he calls a Messianic Jew. You might know that, you might know the earlier name for that better, Jews for Jesus. It's basically a Christian organization that steals Jewish identity and tries to claim, oh, we're Jewish, but we also believe Jesus is the Messiah. Which I don't know if you know much about Judaism, particularly after the advent of Christianity. But one of the, maybe the primary feature of Judaism in a post-like Christian world is that they do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. So, not great for him to try and be like, no, I'm the real Jewish person because I accept Jesus. It's very Christian chauvinist. It's very, like, dismissive of the beliefs of other people and trying to steal their identities, basically. It's kind of messed up.
In ridding our country of these cartels, whether they be in government, whether they be in education, whether they be south of the border. Thank you.
Those famous education cartels. We caught them smuggling math books over the border, but don't worry, we caught them.
Thank you so much, my Father, for giving us infinite wisdom, if we choose to...
I don't understand science, and I have the God-given right to protect my children from understanding it, too.
Try and reach it. Thank you for all things within your scriptures. We say this in Yahusha's name. All right, friends, so here we go. I'm going to show you how the Title IV deed Section 666. Remember, those aren't accidental numbers, okay? You're wondering how the world works. This is
We're not doing bingo, but Mark of the Beast on the bingo.
how they create a $130 billion backlog, and they try to lay it on the shoulders of law-abiding Americans, okay? Let me show you exactly what happened.
His descriptor of what he considers to be bonds here screams that all of his financial education comes from the film The Big Short. And I like the film The Big Short. It's entertaining. It's interesting. It gives a decent, like, truncated, really, really cut down version of the 2008 housing crisis. That's great. But he talks like that's his only insight into financial anything. And it's kind of funny.
This is a 2014 certified copy. I want you to pay attention to the names on this, okay? I'll hold it up here so you can see it. There's the case number. You can get all the documents if you wish, okay? But there's the first one, all right? Now here's the second one. Now, of course, this looks like
that's his child support demand, basically. That's the state telling him, hey, you owe a lot of money in child support that you're refusing to pay. You're going to be in trouble. Maybe stop that.
It's backwards.
Toreador says, 1, 2, Hannah's streaming for you. 3, 4, gonna laugh some more. 5, 6, conspiracy pricks. 7, 8, Sav sits are 8. 9, 10, flat earth again. Black's Law Dictionary, misrepresentation. I shall look that up expediently.
Right? But you'll notice that on this here, there's that child support case. This is the original case filing number here. Pierce County, Washington in 2014. This is a corporation calling itself DSHS. Now, if you looked at the first document very carefully, what you would see is that there was a first and a last name, Marcus Ream. That's not the name that's on the Social Security card attached to the Idaho assumed business name.
Oh, I think I did figure out what's going on with why he's so weird about his identity, by the way. I'm going to get into it in a sec once I get this Black's Law Dictionary.
But they now claim owes child support. And as a result, guess what? I have no less than 13 different letters. I have them here somewhere. I'll grab them, but just got it in the mail.
Fair warning, it's sad.
Yesterday from the U.S. Department of State. Their director there, in spite of all of the documents that I have sent to them, they ignore them. Why? Because they don't want to let us escape from the U.S. citizenship label. When we do that...
If you want to give up your citizenship, you can, but A, it costs money, and B, you need somewhere else to go. You can renounce your U.S. citizenship, but you cannot renounce your U.S. citizenship and stay in the country. You're allowed to renounce your U.S. citizenship. It's just broadly not a good idea for the vast majority of people. You need to go somewhere, though, because once you renounce your citizenship, they don't want you in the country. You can't have your cake and eat it, too. You gotta pick, man.
They no longer can use our bodies as surety for any bullshit debts they want to create.
They don't. Good news.
This is just like the city of Gig Harbor, corporation based out of Washington, D.C.
They're not. They think that all localities and state governments are based out of Washington. They're not. They're state governments or local governments.
Hearing scheduled for the 19th for the corporate entity Marcus Troy Ream. Now, even though I'm going to walk in there with an identification that says Chief Mahto, they're still going to...
There it is. Sorry it took me so long. Misrepresentation. Any manifestation by word or other conduct by one person to another that under the circumstances amounts to an assertion not in accordance with the facts. An untrue statement of fact, an incorrect or false representation. That which, if accepted, leads the mind to an apprehension of a condition or... rather, a condition other and different from that which exists. Colloquially, it is understood to mean a statement made to deceive or mislead. Okay, so... I did some more research on our friend here, Chief Mahto, also known as Marcus Reams. So I looked this up. He does have some indigenous background. I think he just missed the cutoff for the blood quantum to be considered an actual indigenous person, and that's why he complained about it. Yep. Yep. So his father, who I found the obituary for, who died in 2008, was in a tribe and was indigenous. His son, Marcus here, I think just missed the cutoff. So I don't know exactly for his like family's tribe or whatever what the actual blood quantum cutoff is to be considered part of it, but I'm pretty sure he just missed it. So I think this is him in some way coping with this weird identity crisis where he's like, okay, I grew up this certain way, but I'm not allowed in this thing that's my family thing. So I think between that and him identifying with MAGA stuff, it has fucked his brain like you wouldn't believe. And I think this is the result. So that's interesting. Hydrate, will do. Have I seen his resume? I haven't.
Probably pretend that, again, I'm the criminal, right? I didn't kidnap them, didn't steal their weapons, yet they're going to pretend I'm the criminal. Why? Because these are how cartels work, people. You may not believe this, you may not see it yourselves, but I can promise you something. You need to pay attention to the executive orders that Trump...
Just a peach. Good to see you, by the way. Missed you yesterday after you left. I understood why you had to, but good to see you again. Just a peach with $1 tips. Hello, the fact he doesn't have any custody of his children is weird for Washington. Most PNW tribes are 1/8 to 1/16. Whatever, excuse me. Whatever it is, he's under it, I guess, because I know that's something he's complained about.
Issued.
I've not seen his resume. Do you have a link to it?
You need to take a long, hard look at those. And what you're going to see is that it's not only referring to...
Maybe you guys can see my fake LinkedIn page
Mexican...
that I create for doing LinkedIn research on crackpots. They often have LinkedIn pages. My profession is listed as a juggler on my LinkedIn page.
Cartels, which again, yes, I think that's what 99% of the ignorant population among us will believe, but that's not what it's referring to, in my opinion. I don't care if you're talking about the Department of Education. I don't care if you're talking about the electrical union, the plumbers union, the shipping unions. Why do you think unions gravitate towards public utilities, transportation, all of the necessities for you and I to be able to have a so-called comfortable lifestyle?
Does he have any of the other ethnicities he claims to have? Not that I'm aware of. I don't know about that stuff. I have no idea where he's getting the claim of black, or the Messianic Jewish thing I don't think is even a claim of ethnicity. He's basically just a Christian who also uses some Jewish things, like some Hebrew prayers and stuff.
Why do they do that? Because there's tax revenue, guaranteed tax revenue. But what's the biggest cartel of them all? Which cartel controls everything in commerce?
De Beers.
It's called the Bar Association.
Oh, well, that's also wrong. Wronger than what I said, and what I said was also wrong.
That's exactly what they are. They are a cartel. They've all taken an oath to a foreign entity called the Bar Association.
Bar Association isn't a foreign entity, and also you don't have to be a member of the Bar Association to be a lawyer. I don't think sovereign citizens get this, and I understand it's a little confusing if you're not familiar. Being a lawyer does not mean that you are part of the Bar Association. The Bar Association, each state has its own Bar Association, is a, like, private member, like, it's like a thing you can join as a lawyer. You have to be a lawyer to join the Bar Association. You don't have to be in the Bar Association to be a lawyer. Does that make sense? I don't know the percentage of lawyers that are in the Bar Association for their given state. It's not a necessity. Again, they confuse passing the bar with being a member of the Bar Association. They are separate things.
They all have, when you do that, if you read a bunch of different stuff outside of 18 USC, right? But there's a bunch of other things that basically say that's called treason. It's called treason by sedition. Why is that? Because they're trying to invoke admiralty law in the Republic over people who unknowingly, unwittingly, and were fraudulently induced into contracting with them when they were still minors in the public educational system.
None of that's true. Carpcosian with a 15 stream streak says, I'm tired of my cat Moose. He is black and white, a tux, not a cow.
That's generally where it starts. Why? Because they're all indoctrinated too. Not blaming teachers. You guys went through the same, upbringing, the same indoctrination. And when you get to the bottom of all of this and you realize that whether you're talking about the top of the Masons, whether you're talking about the heads of the Educational Association, look at who Trump is now revealing that they are dismantling people. That will tell you where these cartels operate.
See what I mean? He's anti-government, but pro-Trump, the person who is in control of the government, along with Elon Musk. You know what I mean? Makes no sense. It's completely paradoxical. It's so strange how he twists himself around in these circles. Lawyers are bad, and the government's bad, but the federal government's good if Trump is in charge. Like,
Operate. These cartels operate at the highest levels of government, and they come from families that have been around for thousands of years. What they've done is they've incorporated...
That's a dog whistle.
Everything.
At best, that's a dog whistle.
That's called public. You can still live in the private. Those of us who have tried to bridge the two so that we can create GDP and, reduce the public debt, provide public services, they blacklist us. You know how difficult it is for me to actually get a bank account and maintain it?
I mean, pay your child support? Pay your child support.
Why? Because...
I should point out, again, even with the stuff with his dad or whatever his identity issues may be, still needs to pay his fucking child support and stop bitching about women constantly.
They want to pretend I'm a U.S. citizen.
You are.
So if I won't go by their flow, I won't get a driver's license. I have an ID instead, which has no social security number tied to it. Why? Because that's my right. I don't want to live by your society. Never did.
Okay, then get out of it. Like, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't want to live by society's rules, you gotta go find a different society or find somehow a place on the earth that a society has not claimed. It's rare, but it happens. Good luck.
I'm a peaceful, law-abiding man. I don't go out...
It's always interesting how he'll say that. I'm a law-abiding man. No, you're not. You don't get to just choose what laws aren't laws. You very explicitly are breaking the law by not following the child support agreement that you were given. Period. What he means to say is he thinks he's in the right morally, which I don't think he is either, but he's certainly not right legally.
Out here and steal...
Found it here. It's the Mahto construction entry. Have also uploaded it as a PDF to Discord. Let me take a look. Co-experience, co-administrator of the Mahto Trust, the Mahto Church, Mahto Ministries Apprenticeship, a Bible-based ministry. Oh boy, so he considers himself a pastor. President of Mahto Automotive. From March 2016 to 2018, Automotive Repair and Service Center in Wolf Point, Montana. Outfitted police vehicles, performed routine maintenance and service, swapped engines, transmissions, etc. Monthly sales were in excess of 35,000 during our peak time. Mahto Construction, President, August 2010 to December 2016, 6 years, 5 months. Why is he jumping around so much? And he was an insurance broker from 2009 to 2010 for a year, consulted with various business owners and large corporations to determine the overall scope of their operations and inherent exposures related to their respective businesses. We get it. You'd figured out what their insurance needs were and sold it to them. It's weird that he jumped from construction, which he did for 6 years, then to automotive. Like, it's fine to do both, but it seems like if he was genuinely making money in the construction thing, why did he stop? Tori Adore says, also love the sparsely decorated Calex IKEA shelves and what appears to be an old fold-out road map taped to a bare wall behind him. He needs a frame. Miss Quilanius with a 20-stream streak says, I mean, we know he's not serious. He made all this shit up, so he's probably also glad that Trump wants to revoke the citizenship of all natives. He would see it as a good thing because he thinks citizenship is bad.
From people. I don't go out here hurting people. Don't go out here kidnapping people, dragging them into my Nisi Prius corporate courts, do I? No. But until I get my weapons back, I have a duty as a U.S. military veteran to continue moving forward. What does that mean? That means that these guys are literally non-belligerent, but nonetheless enemy combatants. They're operating in the Republic.
Everyone I don't like is an enemy combatant.
I have the treaty right here, Fort Laramie. I'm a signatory to this treaty. Why? Because that's their certified copy saying this is in the Library of Congress. So what happens when I autograph this in the same cursive?
Probably nothing. Cursive isn't magic.
And then I go ahead and put my blue thumbprint on that, maybe a red thumbprint, depending on which jurisdiction you want to refer to.
Oh, he thinks that the blue and the red do different things. Cool beans.
That means I'm now a signatory to that. However, I would argue I'm already protected under an international treaty, even according to the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous Rights in 2007. So again, I shouldn't have to beg my government to go ahead and give me a passport because they want to pretend that some corporate name with first and last is the same as some all caps first, middle, and last on the Social Security card. So they're trying to hold the living man liable for that corporate debt, my body. What they're saying is that you can't buy or sell, you can't engage in commerce, you can't engage in international travel because there's this fictional debt out here. I'm somehow magically responsible for this card, this account that they call it, right? And I have...
You are responsible to pay your child support, if that's what you're saying. Yes, because you had them kids, friendo.
Right here in front of me, I have 2 or 3 different... Hold on.
And then the stream stopped, and he hasn't posted in 2 days. I'm very curious. His streams are normally at least an hour long, but 2 days ago he started that stream, 8 minutes into the stream, was like, hold on, and stopped the stream and never came back. So anyway, I'm curious. All right.
Oh, welcome.
Going back to his earliest Mahto Tribal Council meeting that he has posted. This is from November 13th, 2024.
To the Mahto Tribal meetings, and today is the 13th of November, and Mr. Chief Mahto is here.
Awesome. Let's start this with a quick word of prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Please watch over us, Father Yah. Keep us safe from our harm and accident. Allow us to educate each other, sharpen iron like iron.
I understand what you're saying, Amber, but frankly, I think a lot of the people at the CIA and the DOD love Donald Trump and don't really care. I'm done expecting competence or morality from any government anything for the rest of forever. Just gonna assume everyone in the government personally hates me. Just a Peach with $1 super chats or $1 tip says, I think he really does not need those guns at this time now or in the future. Yes, pay for the kids you have, idiot.
Iron sharpens iron, and to be able to share this message with everybody in the spirit of peace and love and neutrality in which it is offered. We say this in the Most High's name. So, the friend of mine here, Brent, I'll let him introduce himself. Now, I'm going to tell you, he lies a lot, okay, when it comes to me. Okay, because he's got some stories about our time in Israel. I'm not going to say they're all true. Not going to say some of it isn't true, but I'll let him share whatever he wishes and introduce himself. Go ahead, Brentster.
Hi, guys. My name is Brent. Last name is Emery. Pastor, teaching rabbi of a Messianic Jewish congregation in Tacoma, and I live in Tacoma, so I've known...
Once again, the Messianic Jewish thing is basically evangelical Christians who are stealing aesthetics and, like, specific prayers from Jewish, like, people and trying to port it over to Christianity. Putting it out there. It's basically the Jews for Jesus thing.
Marcus probably a good 8 or 9 years, and I've been to Israel with him twice for sure. So we've had a good time there. I do want to tell you a real quick story about Marcus. This is true. He'll have to admit this is true. We were sitting on a bench near the Jordan River. And
hell.
And Marcus was wearing his baseball hat, his Mahto baseball hat. And this gentleman who we've never seen before, never seen since, came up to us and said, I'd like to say a few words over you. So we thought he was going to say a blessing over us, and we were seated on the bench. And so he said to Marcus, I'll need you to take your hat off. So Marcus takes his hat off, and I look up, and the man says to Marcus, that is the worst haircut I've ever seen. He turned away and walked away.
I'm skipping ahead because I actually saw this part. And basically after that joke, which is a little funny, he just yaps and tries to make it sound like he knows a lot of Hebrew, which maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But he just basically brags for a little bit. And I'm going to skip that part.
It's okay. Of the Mahto village and how we operate, okay? Oh, is that him?
Yeah.
All right, so Brent has another meeting. He's got to head out. Thank you again, Brent, for coming.
Thanks, Brad.
I'll come and torment you soon, brother. All right, bye-bye. So, in regards to how we are operating at this point, like I said, I'm attempting to finalize all of the things necessary to put the proper government agencies on notice of who we.
It's a pretty solid joke, to be honest. It is. He runs it into the ground, though, by repeating the punchline 30 times, which is why I skipped right after he said it the first time. When I was listening to this earlier, I was just playing Borderlands 3 and listening to this video. And at first I was like, okay, that's a pretty funny joke. You know, I don't like these guys, but, you know, credit where credit's due. Made me laugh. Then he just kept repeating the punchline. Don't do that.
We are, and you know, our court systems as well as our law enforcement. Again, our law enforcement officers, preference will be given to any law enforcement officer who can pass the written exam so that we know what their aptitude
I hope you're right, Amber.
is. They overstand the basics of, you know, reasonable articulable suspicion. They
There's that overstand again.
understand, you know, Bishop versus U.S. They understand all these other Supreme Court cases that guarantee us the right to travel. But most importantly, we will establish the fact that as U.S. military veterans who have proven themselves to be loyal, law-abiding Americans, they're the ones that we trust to assist.
Again, by law-abiding, he doesn't mean follows the law as it's written. He means does things I agree with, because remember, he's not a law-abiding citizen, but he gets around that by saying, oh, the laws I've broken aren't fair and aren't real laws. So it's a rhetorical tool. He doesn't really mean that in the literal sense. He means it in the sense that nothing I do is illegal, because I'm right.
Us in ensuring that our lawful travels.
Wouldn't it be crazy if people in power had that opinion and were this delusional? Pause for comedic and/or doomer effect. All right, I think that sunk in.
Are not abated by any foreigners. Now, our duty is to educate everybody. And again, our law enforcement officers, all of our public servants are our friends. That's why I am very clear about the fact that I am not at war with any single government agencies. Why?
On the bright side, the movie Frost Nixon is hilarious now.
Because the
You
people
get to the end and the climax is literally the president, our ex-president, admitting that he doesn't think what he's doing is illegal, and everyone gasps. Oh my god, if the president does it, it isn't illegal. Can you imagine a president saying that? That movie's fucking hilarious now.
people who are actually at the very top aren't the people who are out here violating our rights. They are training all of these otherwise diligent law enforcement officers to go out and violate rights as a rule. Why? Because if they can get you to appear in one of their Nisi Prius courts, now you've made a general appearance. If you've not first put in paperwork that says, here's my special appearance, then you have to understand that they're operating under what are called the
You said understand, he fucked up. He said understand. We did it. We got him. He's in our jurisdiction. All right, boys. We got the green light. Go, 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 go.
12 assumptions of the bar.
What about the Toyota Prius court?
What are the 12 assumptions of the Bar Association? You can look these up. Anybody that wants to post them, that would be appreciated. But ultimately, they assume that you are incompetent. Why? Because if you hire an attorney, that's the definition of being incompetent.
It's not. I promise you, every judge in the United States will think better of you and find you to be a more competent human being if you accept or find your own attorney than if you try to go pro se. I don't think a judge in history virtually has respected someone who's gone pro se in the last 70 years.
That means you cannot speak for yourself. You're a ward of the state. I don't care if you're a dad walking into that court pretending like or trying to express the fact that these are your offspring and you own them.
You do not. You do not own them. There's another red flag. Fun fact, you do not own your children. Your children are not property. They are human beings who have their own rights. And the government can step in and protect their rights if they're not being upheld. That's why, for instance, if you're an abusive or negligent parent, you can have your children taken away. It's not because the government hates you and is being mean. It's because your children have rights that you are failing to uphold as their guardian. Therefore, get that taken away. They're not property. They're not property. You don't own them. You are their guardian. You are their parent. Ugh.
That's not the way they see it. They see, another assumption, anything in their courts as a private bar association matter. Why is that? Because they're in there on behalf of your owner, the crown, the Vatican. That's their admiralty law. It is canon law as positive law. So that's why specifically
Canon law is the law of the Catholic Church, for those who don't know. It does not apply to the United States. It's not how that works. The Vatican isn't in charge of the United States, if it needs to be said.
the chief invoked that for his tribe. That's why we tell them what our language is. That's why we explain to them why we have the symbolisms that we have on our flag. We are an independent nation, number one. But secondly, we operate under the authority of the Most High. That's why we can call ourselves a separate society. And according to international law, it's not me, international law,
He's really throwing everything at the wall, isn't he?
we are
By the
entitled
right
to have
of God and international law, I can start my own country. Hey, holy input.
a law enforcement or police agency to be able to protect our own.
Hey, Spokane Dog Man.
This is why I'm sending notice out, because if they have a problem,
Why are these other two here? It's actually funny because the other streams we've listened to from him, they're also on the call. You just don't see them because he takes up all the air in the room. The more they do these meetings, the less they talk. So the videos we've seen that are live streams where he's talking a lot of those have other people in the call. He just says all the words. Yeah. That's just kind of the guy he is, I think. I think he gets people on a call, and he talks at them. And I understand the irony of that being that I'm streaming right now. The difference is, I'm not trying to start a cult. I'm trying to entertain you, more or less. He's trying to start a cult, you know? In my opinion. To me, it seems like he's trying to start a cult. Not very successfully, but hey, he's got two people, so...
with that or an issue, they have the obligation now to tell me how. Where's the issue? Why is this not legal or lawful?
Can we start our own countries too? Because what's happening sucks. We'll all start our own countries. They can't arrest us all. Oh no, we've looped around and reinvented sovereign citizenry.
I'm attempting to operate in accordance with all of the provisions for the Republic. My accusers all happen to be bar association members who've raised their hand and taken an oath to a foreign state.
They haven't taken an oath. You're just complaining that, oh my goodness, all these legal complaints are written by lawyers. Oh my gosh, why are all these legal complaints written by lawyers? I can't believe it. I wonder why.
So which one of us do you want to believe? The man who's never hurt another living soul
We aren't a cult? I don't think so. I think cult leaders make more money than me.
that didn't have it coming?
Or at least have more felony convictions.
Or the one
So I either need more money or a felony conviction. If you guys want to give me either of those, that'd be cool.
who have taken an oath to a foreign nation and therefore lost their U.S. citizenship, according to the law? I would definitely say I would be inclined to listen to somebody who is a known quantity for being a man of the Most High. I didn't say I was perfect. I didn't say I was a good example of what a believer should be. Again, that's why my buddy Brent's here to preach the message, so that we do not get things confused. The chief is rough around the edges. Why? Because hard men are made. We are not born. And that means where my friend Brent has not been drugged through.
Oh, I couldn't find anything about Mahto's military record, by the way. I did look for that. I was looking for some of his background information today, which is how I came across his, like, father, some of that stuff. But yeah, I couldn't find anything about his military record. I'm still gonna continue to look, because I am curious, based on how he acts. But yeah, I'll let you know if I find it. Overthought, thanks for gifting a sub to Holy Input.
The family law court system. He has not had his offspring taken away. He has not had to endure all of the suffering that most dads have to endure in these systems. He's probably not prone to speak without eloquence.
Phyllis Filler says some of us can definitely make a man hard. In fairness, it's not difficult.
Like I am. This is why pride cannot take a front seat here. This is why, as the chief, I recognize my limitations. And, you know, being kind in the face of impressive stupidity or vitriol that's unwarranted is not one of my strong points. I'm working on it. But my people, our fellow Americans, our job is to educate each other. First and foremost, we will not allow foreign traitors, foreign criminals to dictate the narrative. We are not anti-government. We are not anti-tax.
We just aren't going to pay your taxes or follow your laws. You can't double speak like this. He's talking out of both sides of his mouth. We're not anti-government, but we reject the government of the place we're in. We're not anti-taxes, but we don't want to pay any taxes. We aren't anti-law, but we're not going to follow your laws. Like, that's not how this works. You can't just say a thing and then do the opposite thing and then get mad when people respond to the action and not the thing you said that was a lie.
We overstand the fact that when utilizing these public entities, the all caps name estates, that we have a duty to report all this to the IRS. Why? So that our republic gets their appropriate share of the taxes. That's how the common law works with all of the public law. Well, how do we conduct business before 1871? It was done through the mail, registered mail. Why? Because that's a contract.
What?
That's why if you do a
No, it's because it was a way to keep track of all the documents easily and make sure people get them because it's certified mail.
Private administrative process, and you have the notice, you have notice of default, you have all of these other things, and then it ends with the certificate of non-response. That's evidence. Why? Go look up a notary. Go look up what their job was and the different types. Yes, there are different types of notaries. When you get your mind wrapped around the fact that these guys have been doing this for 6,000 years, they have mechanisms and systems that are not shared with us.
Again, that 6,000 years thing, not great, not great. We're verging into, let's just say, blaming the Pharisees territory for everything. Does that make sense? I feel like he's close to talking about the, quote, Babylonian banking system, if you know what I mean. Just a Peach with a $1 tip says, they hate how liberal the state is. Why don't they leave? Because it's his home and he thinks he can take it over.
Why? Because they do not want you educated. You cannot enslave an enlightened or educated race. This is why when the communists went into Russia, when they went into China, when they went into Thailand, or not Thailand, but Cambodia.
When they went into... It's interesting that it seems like he sees, like, like, the things he listed, many of them were, like, driven ideologically from within. Certainly, like, they took ideas from, like, Marx, who was German, you know, so, like, that ideology spread, but he's acting like these countries were invaded by communists from without, and it wasn't like, when you're talking about the USSR, it happened from within, as like a revolution. It obviously didn't turn out great because, you know, Stalin, but
They eliminated all of the educated people first. Why? Because if you
are
can
there different types of notaries? I actually don't know off the top of my head. It might vary by state.
indoctrinate the children from K through 12, it's easy to keep a hold of them. It's easy to control them. If you can indoctrinate young women to sexualize themselves by giving them access to social media, getting all of these positive reviews, thumbs up, all this attention from beta males.
The way he weaves the sovereign citizen so effortlessly into his red pill MGTOW I-word bullshit. It's like a ballet. It's like I'm watching a master ballet dancer prance across the stage, looking weightless. Beautiful.
They're going to grow up thinking that they are princesses, that they're entitled to a Disney fairy tale wedding and marriage. So what happens when all the luster wears off?
Sir, it's not other people's fault you were a shitty partner and husband. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I think most adults don't expect an outright fairy tale. I think that's a straw man. I think they probably want a supportive, loving partner that cares about them and supports them while they support them in kind, because that's what partners do. They help each other and support each other and love each other. And I'm guessing that that wasn't what your relationship was like because it ended and your wife took the kids and she got them because you're kind of cracked in the head. Dillis Filler says he's just mad his OnlyFans hasn't taken off.
Reality sets in and they realize that they have an obligation. Well, in today's world with a marriage contract, because men don't know any better, pastors don't know any better.
He's not using OnlyFans. His nudes are traveling the internet.
That means that they and their offspring are now part of the jurisdiction of that system. Why? Because they're all U.S. citizens and the Vatican owns Admiralty law. It's copyrighted.
Can't copyright law. That's not a thing. What are you talking about?
That's why until you give them notice properly of your intention to be a national but not a citizen of the United States, as an American Indian, that's filed in the county or in the newspaper, some public forum, or within the Mahto recorder's office for your village. All it says is that it has to be recorded somewhere. It does not tell you where it must be recorded. So if you choose to record it in a private recording studio, that's your business. As long as you have a record and they have a stamp and a seal, and it's used in commerce elsewhere and they can prove it, then it's a legitimate filing according to their laws. Now, again, I do not give legal advice. I give opinions. So if anybody has a differing opinion, by all means, share it.
I think the courts have different opinions than you on most things, so maybe consult them.
All law enforcement officers are more than welcome to be on this channel. We're here to educate you. We want you to understand that while you are employed for your governing agency, you do not have rights. You have benefits and privileges of U.S. citizenship. When you clock out for the day and you decide that you're traveling around with
Needs to directly onto my own open shirt tit.
the Mahto plate on your personal, non-commercial conveyance, and you get stopped by one of these foreign agents, revenue agents operating on behalf of one of these foreign corporate entities called a state, a county, a municipality, a city. You can show them your properly filled out DS-11 passport card that came from that, and it should flash, do not detain, do not interrogate, lifetime concealed or open carry. Why? Because on the form DS-11, you filled it out correctly with the attached statement, explanatory statement. You also checked all the boxes that said non-U.S. citizen, because there's about 3 or 4 traps in that to ensure that they can give you a U.S. citizen passport. Why?
It's not a trap. They're trying to get correct information. Are you saying you lied on your form to get a passport? Because that's not good. I really want a count of how many laws he's breaking, whether intentionally or not. Because from what he's describing, he misfilled out his passport application and lied in multiple places on it. So that's a shame. That's illegal.
Because then they bond it. Each one of your passports has to have a bond in case you injure somebody in one of these foreign jurisdictions. Who earns the money on that bond? Who earns the money from hypothecating it? What is
The guy in the top
hypothecation? That's
right
taking
is just doing a cooking show. This is going to be my new setup for stream. It's going to be me and then all of you. I want to see all of your faces watching me. It'll be incredibly creepy and off-putting.
$100 and turning it into $1 million like that. Because they can continually sell it and resell it and sell it and resell it. I won't get into the math on it. It's complicated.
To be clear, it'd be creepy and off-putting because I have stage fright and don't like to actually see people looking at me. Not anything about you.
But these derivatives are in the trillions of dollars. You think everything you're looking at on the stock market, everything you're looking at on our, CAFR reports or other reports on the national level, the GDP and all of the associated three-letter acronyms that go with it. You're not seeing really what's going on behind the scenes with all of these negotiable instruments you don't even know exist. It's like the hidden contracts that you don't understand exist. If you have a tribal ID card from one of the existing 574 federally recognized tribes, that's evidence you're a U.S. citizen, no different than a driver's license. Unless you have given notice to your tribal council that you are rescinding, that you are dissolving any association with their corporate entity. And instead, you're part of the Mahto tribe of Indians. Again, I don't care if you're part of an indigenous tribe, one of those 574. What I care about is, do you have American nationality by birthright? Are you a law-abiding, loyal American? And do you believe in some form of the Most High, whatever that means to you? Those are really the defining
Can the Most High be cheese?
characteristics for being able to come in as a full or associate member. If you want to be a full member, you must demonstrate that you have
Oh
knowledge.
god, I just realized the fact that I like cheese is also a character trait of Urkel. That's a shame.
That you understand how to manage that minor estate properly so that you are not taxing our Treasury or our IRS personnel. You have to be able to stand on your square if you are summoned into one of these Admiralty Title 4D Section 666 or other Nisi Prius courts. You have to be able to explain to people who you are. Sorry, I'm not that.
What's his beef with atheists? Why can't atheists become members of his tribe? He probably just thinks that non-religious people can't be moral, something along those lines. Pretty common trope in certain Christian circles. Stone Corbell says, you heard it here first, folks. You're not a real Native American unless you believe in the Christian God.
Entity. Really, do you have any evidence? Yes, I went in and I did a legal name change. I have a judge's signature on this piece of paper here that says I'm not that all caps name. I've submitted a notice of special appearance that lets you know that I am here in that capacity. And that because I've made a special, not general appearance, I am not extending or agreeing that you have jurisdiction over my body. If you want to create debts, you can utilize the unlimited exemption on the back of the Social Security card for that all caps name, assumed business name. And you can discharge it in accordance with public law. Well, what do these public entities want you to do? They keep pretending like they don't know what you're talking about. Why? So that you can be forced to send.
They keep pretending they don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe they don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's completely foreclosed to him, the idea that he might just be wrong. Like, it's not even on the table. He can't even begin to consider the idea that this is all crazy and he's wrong.
And then more wampum of their kind, the US dollars. So when you bring this all home, what happens when we have an educated population among Americans? I want you to take a minute and go read any one of the Federalist Papers. And while you're reading the Federalist Papers, you need to understand the fact that those were written to your average 8th grade farmer of the day.
Does he think that people don't read the Federalist Papers these days? Because in the United States, those are like really common to read for US history classes, at least some of them, or college classes. Like, does he think that the Federalist Papers are an obscure piece of American history that most people, I mean, I guess most people probably haven't read it just because most people don't read things and a lot of people don't go to college and don't pay attention in school. But like, among people who know about the American Revolution and the history of it, people are familiar with the Federalist Papers. Like, we learned about that shit in elementary school. We didn't read them in elementary school, but we learned about them, and then you go over them, you get older.
I'm going to say that again. Your average 8th grade farmer of the day. We did not have public schools here until, I believe, 1866. And the first public school children were brought there under military armed guard. Why? Because parents did not want their offspring in public schools. The scriptures say that we are to educate
There's a whole song about them in Hamilton. Yeah.
our offspring. So this will go into more about choosing the correct partner because it's relevant here, men. Does the tribe dictate who you can marry? Does the church? No. Again, you're free to do whatever you want. You're a sovereign with nobody to govern but yourself. You have no other subjects other than yourself. It means you're free in the Mahto tribe, provided you harm no other man or woman. Do not use the term human being. If you look that up in Black's Law Dictionary, it means monster. And it means that they cannot own property. This is why everybody...
Human beings can own property. Human beings are the only thing that can hold property. Well, corporations, but you know what I mean. Like human beings, yep, I knew that was coming. Chiba Hawk with a Black's Law Dictionary request. I assume you want me to look up human beings?
that thinks they own their home, if you're paying taxes on it, hello? Do you really pay taxes on anything you own? Think. Read the Emergency Bankruptcy Act of 1933. You are a tenant in common. Not one single income tax dollar has ever gone to anything in this country. It's all attributed to England. You think I'm wrong? Go.
You think that property tax goes to England? No, property taxes are a state thing, so your property taxes in the United States, if you are in a state that has property taxes, go to the state. Not every state in the United States has property taxes, by the way.
Read the law, fool. When you take all these things into account, pastors, you realize that when the book of Revelation and Daniel talk about the iron mixing with the clay, this is where we are living today. When you tell your congregation the Roman Empire who was in charge back in the day, you are unwittingly telling them something that is inaccurate.
Oh, well, I guess he thinks the Catholic Church, so he thinks the Catholic Church is Rome, because it originated in Rome. Okay, so he thinks the Roman Empire controls the world secretly still? Wrong, but okay.
You need to read the scriptures as though they are talking about today. Why? Because they talk about more today than when Yahushua himself walked the shores of Galilee. Chuck Missler used to say that a lot. Another scholarly individual. I wanted to talk about that real fast too. Do not think for 1 minute that the chief is somebody or anything special that has amassed this knowledge from some secret source. I have not. Wonderful men like Carl Miller, many of these gurus out here. Yusuf L's got a good channel. Brandon with his channel, he's starting to do good stuff. You have the Lone Wolf. You've got a lot of these other gurus.
Human being isn't in here. I don't know if it's in a earlier version or if he's just making shit up. Human being is not in this version of Black's Law's Dictionary, which is the 5th edition. I don't know what edition he's reading, though, because there are 12 editions. So it could be an old one, could be a more recent one, could be shit he made up or read somewhere. Instead, I'll read something around the same area. Hulks, a place of punishment for convicts in England, abandoned with the reform and the punishment of convicts began in England around 1840. What about human being? No, that's not either.
Gurus out here. I won't mention the ones that are charged.
Being and a real hero. Does anyone else like Drive? Seen Drive? Watch Drive. Phyllis Filler says, I'm not sure if this is a cleanse, but maybe it's close enough.
I'm so excited, it's yoga time, only men invited. Don't be late or we'll suck your dick. That'll teach you, dumbass bitch. Anyway, we partner up, either dick to dick or butt to butt. But not dick to butt, cause that's fucking gay. And manly yoga is fucking straight.
I enjoyed that. I think that's a cleanse of some kind.
charging $3,000 to $5,000 to extort people who are desperately trying to free themselves from this admiralty system. I think those gurus need to read Matthew and Luke very carefully, where it says, woe to the lawyers. We already know why. For them, it's obvious. But it also says, woe to the teachers of the law.
When Jesus says woe to the lawyers, he's talking about not like modern day lawyers necessarily, but he's talking about contemporaneously with the life of the character of Jesus. He does say woe to the lawyers, but he's talking about their connection to the Pharisees and the religious legal system that existed there at the time. Jesus very much got in the face in the biblical narrative of the Pharisees and religious leaders at the time, basically saying the things that you're teaching aren't the things that God is actually teaching. So it was basically part of Jesus trying to claim reforms over the Jewish community and saying, like, your legal system is shitty and based on ungodly things, you know. They weren't saying all lawyers for all eternity are terrible. It was an admonition. It was him shit talking basically the Pharisees and their legalistic view of passages from, you know, holy texts.
It accuses them both of the same thing. What is that? Hiding the keys to knowledge. All you gurus that are charging people $3,000 to $5,000 to assist them in getting themselves out of a criminal.
Just a Peach with a $1 tip says, the first private school in 1852 in the capital and the first public Seattle school 1870. They're not even close to schools that we have today that were standardized in the 50s when high school became required.
Admiralty law case. Because they can't afford to pay your $3,000 to $5,000 extortionary fee. You're no different than the frickin' attorneys. I think you need to pull your bottom lips over your head and swallow. You're missing the big picture. We have people to free, children to not be trafficked in these courts. The last thing people need to do.
Again, sir, your kids were taken away because your wife got custody. They weren't trafficked.
Is to pony up another 5,000 to 10,000 they don't have so that you can fill your pockets. You and I will all stand in front of the Most High on Judgment Day, friends. And one thing I will not have to answer is the Most High asking me, hey, you had the knowledge, why did you not share it? I'm not going to be that guy that has to tell them because they couldn't afford my $3,000 to $5,000 fee. I think that's going to be instant smite button, go to hell with kerosene pants, however you want to frame it. It's not going to be a good day for that man or woman.
I had kerosene pants.
If you're a pastor and you're out here knowingly and willingly telling people to come and meet on the wrong Sabbath day, that's not just between you and your congregation, that's between you and the Most High. Once you have knowledge of the fact that you and all of your population within your congregation are actually U.S. citizens and you're owned by the Vatican, you have a duty. Does that mean that you have to threaten your entire existence with your congregation and tell them, hey, we're all switching?
Days of Proxy says, I don't have my 4th edition with me, but I googled Black's Law Dictionary human being. The first result was a person, but the second result is a PDF. I'm not clicking it, called Black's Law Dictionary human being monster, not Black's Law. So maybe a thing that Sovsits just made up at some point and started circulating? Look into it.
Switching to Saturday or Friday night at sundown? No. But nobody's stopping you from adding another service. Nobody's stopping you from integrating the correct name of the Most High and His Son that have been taken out over 6,400 times in the bastardized King James Version. Why did that come about in 1611? If it was really valid, why wasn't it there back during the period in which all of the disciples and all of the other believers lived? There's actually more than this collection of 66 books. Why have the rest been hidden from us? It's alluded to in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation. I believe Joel as well. It says, hide up the facts in these books until the end times.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, so when you look up monster in certain law dictionaries, old ones from like 1930, monster is used, and I'm sorry, I am so sorry. This is an old-timey, fucked up definition. It basically meant a person who was born incredibly, quote, deformed and cannot inherit any land. So it basically means someone born with like a severe birth defect or something of that sort. So it does say a human being, but it goes on to say a human being who has like defects and can't inherit land in some jurisdictions in the 30s. Yeah, it's a yikes, but that's what he's using. A really out-of-date definition that's, let's be nice and call it problematic. I don't even know what to... It's understating it a bit.
Which book are they referring to? In my opinion, probably Enoch. Enoch connects a lot of the dots, pre-flood, pre-earth, and everything else. What happened with the Watchers, the fallen angels, where the bringer of light, Satan.
Concentrated ableism as applied to classism really makes me think about, like, the Frankenstein monster and the older connotations of that meaning that we don't necessarily have today and don't think about.
Satan comes down. We have to remember, when you look at the world from a lens of a biblical perspective, it all makes sense. What does Nakash mean? It means deceiver in Hebrew. Why is there a serpent's tongue on NASA, Nakash?
There isn't, it's a swoosh.
Website. Why does NASA have a film studio? Why would they?
Because they do promotional stuff? What are you talking about?
Ever need to have a film studio? Why do they have green screens?
Because they do presentations and they stand in front of stuff. Have you never seen any of the science outreach stuff that they do at NASA?
Why did the
This is coming up because he's a flat earther, by the way. Chief Mahto is a flat earther.
astronauts train in
Mosslaw, thanks for 15 months, says, deceiver in Hebrew. This guy's a deceiver speaking random Hebrew.
swimming pool?
Thanks for continuing your subscription. And if you want to help support the stream, anyone can gift subs. We're a little behind for the month, so if you want to help support the stream and like it, consider gifting subs. Anyway.
Because the book of Genesis says, the windows of the heavens and the windows of the great deep burst forth. We had water coming from above. We had water coming from below. This is probably why, according to Walt Brown in his textbook, in the beginning, he says that this explosion erupted with the force of over 30,000 hydrogen bombs. Could this be why only one side?
I'm sorry, he's trying to measure the force of the heavens and the underground springs opening in the Noah story? You can't measure that. It's a mythological story. What are you talking about?
Side of the moon is cratered, not the rest of it. Could this be why all asteroids out there run on a pattern that comes around Earth? Yes, because they
No.
emanated from it.
You know what an orbit is?
What is the first law of motion? An object in motion will remain in motion until acted upon by an outside force. What's the law of conservation of angular momentum? I explained that yesterday, when you're twirling something over your head and you let it go. There you go. It's debunked right there if you're into the Big Bang Theory. The fact that Uranus and Venus rotate in opposite directions to the rest of the planet makes that impossible. Not highly unlikely, impossible. Now, when you juxtapose that against all of the giants, all of the huge skeletons, everything else that have been hidden from us.
Oh, he's into giants too? Wow. We should have played bingo today.
When you look at all the pyramids throughout the world, you overstand all of these technologies. For instance, electrolysis.
The technology of putting rocks in this shape. What if we did many rocks at the bottom, and every layer we did fewer rocks? That's stable. Ooh, good idea. Let's do that.
Utilizing, baking soda inside of the correct water solution, putting your electrodes in there that are stainless steel and creating all of the hydrogen gas by separating the oxygen from the hydrogen. They've proven that this is a viable technology. Why isn't it being done? Because it's cheap. Why are we on fossil fuels?
Where's he getting this, Trey?
It's because
Is it a Baghdad battery thing? Because I feel like we're getting close to Baghdad battery shit.
Rockefeller and Standard Oil shut down all of the stuff that was not fossil fuel related. Do we really think it was an accident that John Jacob Astor, who was going to actually finance Tesla's work, happened to die on the Titanic?
Yes, that is actually a coincidence. Thank you for asking.
Along with a few other people who were big proponents of it. If we look at Tartarian, the pictures of that.
Oh my god, he's into Tartarian too? Is there anything he's not into? He's half remembering an old Kent Hovind seminar. Oh, that's hilarious.
All of the advanced structures.
Is this a script or crazy ranting? Crazy ranting. He believes it, though.
They had these bulbs and they had these spires at the very top. Do you know what happens when you put liquid mercury inside of a bulb at the very top of one of those spires?
Please tell me. I'm intrigued.
It pulls down all of this energy from the atmosphere.
Oh no, he's doing etheric energy. Ugh. Man.
If you think that all of the northern and the southern lights, because they're down on the south too, if you think that those are caused from some sort of radiation, it's because you don't understand Masonic imagery.
Wait, are the Freemasons causing the Aurora Borealis? At this time of day? At this time of year? Localized entirely in this crackpot's head?
So above...
Dillis Filler says, for people like Mahto, I think we need a new bingo card of things they believe that are actually true. He did. He said understand a few times accidentally. Can you see it? No.
As below. May sound crazy because you...
Why are they always in their car? The acoustic environment of a vehicle is pretty good for this kind of thing. It's relatively isolated, it's padded, so it kind of like keeps your voice from echoing a bunch. It's a reasonable decision if you don't normally record things. Why is he doing it when we've seen him with a computer before and a microphone? I don't know.
You've never heard of it, but the Earth is flat, but it still has a hollow inner. It has an inner...
Bro is beyond lost in the sauce. He's become one with the sauce. He's blended with the sauce force.
Sun, and it has an inner moon, and these reflect off of a 1,400-mile wide hole in the north and the one in the south. This is what Admiral Byrd flew through.
Yeah, hollow flat Earth. I don't understand the hollow flat Earth thing. It's like, this is the flat Earth map that most of them believe in. So if you think that the Earth is flat and hollow, you'd have to, like, give a dimensionality to this, and at that point it's not a it's like a cylindrical Earth, right? Because if you took this and you gave it more depth here in this direction, it would be like a cylinder. So like this face would be flat, but it would still be curved on the side because it would be a cylinder. I'm thinking about it harder than he did. That's the problem.
Why did he not know he was flying through something that large? Because he had 700 miles
I got it. Twinkie Earth. That's a big Twinkie.
Each direction, left and right, before he would have
Nemesaur, thank you so much for gifting 10 tier 1 subs to the community. Much appreciated.
been able to see that gigantic hole. But if the Earth is flat, and like Genesis and the Book of Enoch say, these are great portals where the water circulates from above to below, above and below. And all of our moon, our sun, how they move inside of the planet. It all makes sense if you're looking at a flat model. It makes no sense on a globe.
Earth is the palace in Never-Ending Story. The like Crystal Palace that's like floating there.
If they have
Also, Never-Ending Story fucking rules. I watched the German cut for the first time a while back. It was pretty good. I missed the soundtrack from the American version, though. Just not right without the Never-Ending Story.
have all this hidden technology,
The moon and sun are inside now, apparently.
why haven't they brought it out? Probably the same reason if you go into the Indian Ocean and you look up North Sentinel Island.
Read the book if you're inclined. There's also a TV show. There was an animated series, and in the early 2000s, there was a series that was adapted. I found DVDs of them online, and I want them.
These people are called the Sentinelese. It's
Oh.
one of the few islands on Earth you are forbidden from visiting. Why?
Because they're uncontacted and murder people when they show up, and also we don't want to give them diseases or fuck up their lives, because every time people have come in contact with less technologically advanced cut-off tribes, it ruins their fucking lives. So we're just leaving them, which is the good thing to do. Leave them be.
They will kill you. They do not have discussions with people that land on their shores. They eliminate them. So the government has decided we are going to let this far less advanced race live on their little island by them.
I'm not a fan of what he just said. I'm not a fan of what he just said. I'm not a fan of what he just said.
Themselves. Why did they do that? Because as long as they're there, they're not hurting anybody. They're not threatening the powers that be.
Yeah, that was pure racism. Depraved Ambion's correct. That was literally just him being real gross.
When do they come for you? When you threaten the status quo. This is why I've insulated the people that are assisting me by not allowing them to speak.
You're welcome, Biddle TM.
If they want to blame anybody, they can blame me. Again, my fellow believers here are believers because they're believers in Yahuwah, or they want to help their fellow Americans, or, you know, they love the Republic, or all these other things. I'm here because I'm a bondservant of the Most High, but most importantly, I am a veteran. I took an oath to support the Republic.
And now you're trying to be... what's the word I'm thinking of? You're seceding from the government? You see how that's kind of funny? I would imagine your oath pertains to also not trying to secede from the government.
And I was going to elaborate on yesterday when I said you must listen to protocols of the learned elders of Zion.
Something really gets... oh no. That's the bullshit. Holy
Get on
fuck.
BitChute and I was going to elaborate on yesterday when I said you must listen to protocols of the learned elders of Zion.
There it is. Okay, so he's an outright anti-Semitic Nazi. Okay, I was wondering if this would come up. For those that don't know, the protocols of the Elders of Zion that he just referenced is an old forgery that anti-Semites and neo-Nazis use to justify hatred against Jewish people. It's basically a fake account of someone who secretly listened in on a secret meeting of high-up Jewish people in their secret plans to take over the world. It is like the most cartoonish, anti-Semitic, made-up bullshit ever. If you ever hear someone reference it, be aware they are a fucking Nazi. You do not get that far to know it by name and, like, say it like he is. Like, obviously, if someone is telling you about it in this context, it's fine, because they're warning you. But if someone is talking about it like it's legitimate, all of the red flags. If they bring up the protocols of the Elders of Zion, Babylonian banking systems, or the Khazarian Mafia, these are all dog whistles for anti-Semitism. These are all dog whistles for conspiracy theories to justify hating Jewish people. So just a warning, it's disgusting. He's an idiot who fell for a scam because he wants to hate people. He's not only hating people, he's stealing their identity. He is literally saying that he thinks Jewish people are evil while taking the title of a, quote, Messianic Jew. He's trying to get rid of Jewish people and steal that identity for himself. It's like he's fucking Buffalo Bill. He's trying to get rid of Judaism and fucking skin it and wear the skin. It's sick. It's sick. Okay, green guy with a $10 tip says, Hannah, I'm not watching, but I'm sure you're watching the most smart and intellectual stuff on the internet, but you're just lying, saying it's fake. Like news, like all the other shills on the internet. Go puppets! Thanks, green guy.
Get on BitChute and listen to the Rabbi Finkelstein interview.
Nemesaur says, most of the protocols is plagiarized from the anti-Napoleon work, The Dialogue in Hell Between Machiavelli and Montesquieu. Yes, it is plagiarized.
where he admits that throughout history, they've been on both sides of the conflict. And by they,
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever listened to that interview. I have, unfortunately, because of my job. It's literally a faceless person doing an offensive Hasidic Jewish stereotype voice and basically claiming that all Jewish people are evil. So idiot neo-Nazis and anti-Semites listen to it and go, oh yeah, this is legitimate, because, you know, they want it to be true. It's the equivalent of, imagine if someone put on blackface and started doing like like a, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like a minstrel show voice and started talking about like all these evil things about like black people, and then racists looking at that and going, yeah, that's true. That's what he's referencing here, is someone putting on an offensive like Jewish stereotype voice and telling lies, and he goes, yep, I believe that. It's terrible. It's disgusting.
I mean the bad people.
Like, I know I cover really bad stuff, but like, my reaction now should tell you how deep this goes. This guy is more cooked than just about anyone I've ever seen in terms of conspiracy, and that's saying a lot. I've seen some well-done motherfuckers on this show in terms of being cooked. This guy's not even well done. He's charred. He's charcoal. He's just a big carbon mass of conspiracy. Okay.
At the top. World War I, World War II, the Civil War, Vietnam. Why? Because war is the most profitable industry on the planet. That's why. And they own all of the war-making machinery.
They. We know what he means by they now.
It's called the military-industrial complex.
On the plus side, he doesn't have access to his kids. That's true. That's something to be happy about. One of the reasons he's so upset and so vitriolic in his rhetoric is because, in terms of life, he has lost so far. I'm not saying he's a loser. I'm saying everything he seems to have tried to do with his life, he has failed to do so. He's lost his wife. He's lost his kids. The courts are coming after him because he refuses to follow the law. So he is not in power. I want to be clear. I know life is stressful right now. This man doesn't have any power. He thinks he does. He's acting like he does. But I want to make it very clear, he does not have any power. Okay. Maybe I said that to make myself feel better. I don't know. Just a Peach with $1 says, we have a lot of snow, so no work for Green Guy tomorrow. He's being silly because of it. I'm jealous. I have to work tomorrow, and I gotta get up really early. Gotta get up at 6 a.m., and I hate that shit. So that'll be fun. Still gonna try and stream tomorrow.
Eisenhower warned us about it. Happened after World War II. Surprised to know that there's certain things that when our president is elected that he is not allowed to know. Why is that? Because probably it's private, would be my guess.
6 a.m., yeah, I work like 7 to 5 tomorrow.
It says U.S. government property, but again, if you have a trust and you put it into fee to trust status, I'd have to double check to see if anybody can do that, but I'm pretty sure any entity could. That means it's off limits unless you have authorization to be there. But we have all of our Americans working at these facilities. Why? Because they don't know they're U.S. citizens. I can't say it any simpler than that. But even if they did, we wouldn't tell you don't go work. I mean, you're our servants. Of course we want you to work. But we want you to be within the confines of the Republic. We want you to be educated. So
is this the kind of meeting you can lay down in? I guess. Also, this one guy's the only guy in the call now, so it's basically like Mahto's just, like, telling him a bedtime story. It is weird.
You know why you're there, what you're doing, and who your masters really are. I will go out on...
Zytam says, if it makes you feel better, I have to be at work at 6 a.m. I get up at 3:30 a.m. That does make me feel better.
And I will...
I'm really sorry.
Say a guy like Edward Snowden. A guy like Julian Assange. These are brave men. Why? Because in spite of everything they knew that would come against them, they spoke out anyway. What happens when you get good people sitting silently? Evil prevails.
The other guy just wearing a hat inside. Yeah, middle-aged and older white dudes will just do that. They'll just, like, wear a hat inside, like, all the time.
What
There's
happens?
nothing wrong with it. It's just, yeah, that's something white guys do. Stone Corbell says, imagine being trapped in a call with this guy yelling total nonsense at you and feeling pressured to stay in the call. Sounds like torture. Sounds like a fun day to me, but I'm kind of cooked in the head too, so... Luckily, not like he is. Not in a hateful way. Just in a I'm fascinated by crazy way.
Happens when you have a pastor who refuses to share knowledge that all other pastors need? Evil prevails. The only thing necessary for that is to good men to do nothing. You've heard that saying. If we want to look at philosophy and we want to look at cultures and populations, everybody does fine until force is a necessity, till greed shows its ugly head. God's law is the ultimate refining law. Why? Because it's based on the Most High. It's not based on man's. So at the Mahto Tribal Council, we run things like the scriptures tell us to run it.
Miscellanea says, I'm a middle-aged white guy with a beard too, and the hat goes off when I get in. To be clear, I'm not saying all white guys do this. I'm just saying of the guys I see who do this, all of them have been white guys. That's not saying no non-white guy never does it. I'm not saying all white guys do it. Something I've noticed. It's like middle-aged men dating profile pictures. It's very specifically usually a white guy thing that they have a fish. You know what I mean? The fish picture with the Ray-Bans. Like, I would say that's a very white guy thing. Does it mean every white guy does it? No, but it is a thing pretty particular to white guys.
This is why in our villages, men are the only ones on the tribal council. Fully enrolled single men have one
To
vote.
be clear, the hat indoors here is because of the costume. I don't wear a hat indoors when I'm not wearing the costume.
Married men have 2 votes.
Oh, so you get to vote for your wife. Wow.
Unapologetically, this is how we run things, because that's how our native elders used to do it, and it worked great.
Did it?
We do not use modern medicine unless we have to, i.e. emergency room, trauma care, that sort of stuff. Why? Because 100 million Indians survived just fine without vaccines before that came along.
Do you want to look at mortality rates, both infant and adult, prior to vaccines and then after, and tell me what the difference is? Because there's a difference.
How did that happen? If it's supposedly technology that we all need.
Because people died much more often back then, and like half your kids died, like within a year of birth. So that's fun.
Remember, when you wrap your mind around the idea that this world is controlled by evil forces, the very worst thing that they could do.
Green guy with a $3 tip says, is there space between your shelves? I could care less. We got 6 inches in Southern Virginia. I kept watching because when you got pissed and have a long talk explanation, you're so entertaining. Like on Pissmas, everyone loved you getting pissed off. Do people like when I get mad? Why?
Do is to show you
I get incoherent and yelly.
they exist. So what's the next best thing? Because they fear divine retribution, they must tell you what is going on. Somehow, somewhere. So where do they place this information? Believe it or not, media. It says that Satan,
Oh, he's the only guy in the call now.
he can
The other guy must have left.
control both music as well as worship in heaven. This is why you listen to a lot of these stories about people who are out here and they're performers. They'll admit they've sold their soul to the devil. They wrote a blood contract, an oath. They exchanged. Go ahead.
Oh, movies also. They declare right in front of you on movies what they're planning.
Did you know movies are real life? We're watching a movie on the bingo card. Again, we're not playing bingo today, but we really should have.
Yep. And especially The Simpsons. I was going to get to that.
Tracy Ullman, what have you done?
They put this in the most ridiculous place that you could possibly imagine.
Hi,
What are you gonna-
caramba. Remember when Bart Simpson was a controversial character, perverting the brains of your youth, and all he did was say fucking "I caramba" and "don't have a cow, man"? Eat my shorts. And he sold Butterfingers. And this was like a culture war issue for people. A kid who says "I caramba"
use for evidence when you're trying to convince your fellow Americans. Have you seen The Simpsons? Do you have any idea how ridiculous that sounds on its face? That's brilliant. We don't have divine retribution. We put it in The Simpsons. I mean, who are we to deny they didn't?
What?
Yet if you look at the startling amount of times that they've predicted things correctly.
Amber says he's lying. The Iroquois Confederation explicitly exalted the rights of women. Excuse me, clan mothers held a lot of economic and political influence. I can cite multiple historians for that. But you don't understand. He wants to stop women from having voting rights. So how else is he supposed to do it?
It's really eerie how incredibly accurate the things are, from the background people to the location.
See, Amber Pretzels, I get it. I find him interesting, but fair enough.
To everything. Why, if you take all of the currency that's been printed since 2001, you look at the back of them. I don't know if you've seen that, but there's a good meme out there that shows how it literally lays out Twin Towers coming down.
The good meme about the Twin Towers.
If that's true, what are the odds it's an accident? That it would happen across all of the currency that happened to come shortly within that time period.
Yeah, that's 9/11 out of nowhere on the bingo card. And citing memes.
Not an accident. So we have the Mahto wampum. I want to be very clear about what this is.
Green guy with another $3 tip says, Hannah, the wife and me sent you a Freddy Krueger necklace. Did you not like it? You don't wear... Oh, yeah, I forgot I had that. It's not that I don't like it. It's that I'm an idiot and my ADHD made me forget. It's in my drawer somewhere. I'll have to find it off stream so I can start wearing it again.
Remember, we start our...
Thank you. I'm sorry I forgot.
Villages off with script. It has to be kept in a book. All of these things eventually will
Jay's a proxy. What do you want me to look up in Black's Law? A monster?
coincide and mate with the online system, but that makes us impervious to being shut down by electromagnetic pulse or other ultimate means of electronic disabling.
I'm sorry, why do you think you're immune?
That means that our
to EMF? Or EMPs?
villages can still function because people have a coin, they know which village they belong to, and that village keeps a ledger. That means if you're a part of that village, whether you're an associate or you're a fully enrolled member of the American band, that means you're going to be receiving a portion of whatever that village receives. They're 90% of the wampum for that village. So we are privatizing everything. Why can we do this? Because we have a square flag like the other two military/state city societies on the planet. The only difference is that we predate all of them. Let me say that again. We predate all of them. Why? Because...
How are you trying to claim that you predate the Vatican? In what universe are you claiming you predate the Vatican? You just made your tribe up. I think the other place he's I don't know the other place he's referencing. Probably London, because that's the other one he brings up that he thinks is a city-state, even though it's not.
We're indigenous. Why do you predate all of them, even though you're a Native American and you're not of the indigenous people? Because one of the indigenous people adopted you. That's the chief. You come into my Assiniboine Sioux band through my authority as a veteran. If you choose to follow, just like the chiefs in the day, you're part of that band.
Sorry, Monster isn't in here. Let's do... monogamy, the marriage of one wife only, or the state of such are restrained to a single wife, the term used in opposition to bigamy and polygamy.
My band belongs to the Most High, Yahuwah. We're Indian, state citizens. We are not U.S. citizens that belong to the Vatican. That's the 30,000-foot, 1-minute elevator speech on who we are. Where it gets into the weeds is when we start discussing how we utilize all these negotiable instruments, international bills of exchange, and other monetary things to go out and increase the GDP, reduce the public debt, and provide our public services. We use this again to work in conjunction with our existing governmental agencies and offices insofar as we need their help. If we can do it ourselves, why would we farm it out? If we can hire our own warriors, our own law enforcement marshals to go out and patrol our territories, why wouldn't we?
Could I just point out that he's very close to reinventing the North Korean concept of junche? Does anyone know what the fuck I'm talking about? He's already skipped to the part of the dictatorship where he's encouraging self-reliance because he can't trade with the outside world. I don't know how much you guys know about North Korea.
They are the most educated law enforcement.
After North Korea got basically cut off from the rest of the world, the leader at the time introduced this concept that he called junche, which basically, it's a kind of a nebulous concept because it's a dictatorship, so he kind of used it for whatever he wanted. But it basically is self-reliance, right? So because they were unable to trade easily with other countries, they decided, okay, we need to do all our own farming, we need to do all our own infrastructure, blah, 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 blah. Didn't end up working out. They do a lot of trade with China, and actually closing the borders from COVID really fucked up a lot of people in North Korea because they were very dependent on smuggling from China for a lot of their food and goods and stuff. But anyway, by and large, what I'm saying is, it's a pretty big cult and dictator move to sort of cut off the idea of outside help or trade in order to insulate further, because often it's necessary, but also it helps control those within your group.
On the roadways. Why wouldn't we want?
Amber says, to elaborate, the Iroquois essentially had a separation of power and checks and balances between elder women and the elder women. I assume, I don't know what that was, but you said the same thing twice. Men were warriors and chiefs, but contrary to popular belief, female elders were the, in modern parlance, bureaucrats of the tribe and could, by action of their own council, impeach the chief. Oh.
Want them out there teaching or reteaching all of these state patrol, all of these city policy enforcement officers. I think that those would be the ones that those guys would want to talk to, don't you? If you're thinking for one moment that your average law enforcement officer, federal or state, does not love this country, you're fooling yourselves. I consider them to be conscripts, raised in the same educational system, weren't given much of a choice outside of, hey, you need to provide for yourself. How are you going to do that? You're going to go over here and exchange your labor. You're going to have a gun. You're going to risk your life earning revenue for all these bar association attorneys. Now, for some men, that's a good thing. Some of them like the power of a badge. Some of them like the ability to go out and just help people. I don't really care what their nature is. What I care is what their educational level is. Why? For public safety. It's been proven to me twice that when I complied lawfully and peacefully, I never got my weapons back.
Again, you didn't comply, though. You're refusing to pay your child support.
So what does that teach Americans? Now, again, personally, I'm not going to take somebody's life over a weapon because I know that we have our government in place to protect us. But that doesn't mean I'm ever going to stop pursuing getting them back. And now that I've had enough time to study and I get how we legally and lawfully put our society together, I have bad news for the city of Gig Harbor and Kitsap County in the state of Washington. The fee schedule for international trespass has been filed in Madison County in the territory of Idaho since about 2021. And in there it specifically says that the rental fees for taking any of my property, i.e. weapons, is $68,000 per day per item.
So in his head, the government owes him, like, millions of dollars. Okay, well, that's not happening.
item is a bullet, a holster, a magazine, every component individual working part of the weapon.
Oh, so not even per gun, per part of the gun? Does he think by throwing out insane numbers like this, it gives him a place to negotiate from? Like, it's not a negotiation tactic if it's made up. You know what I mean? Gitara says, I thought he was going to say that even though he complied, that his rights were still violated by the cops, because if that were true of him, he'd have a point since we see it happen frequently enough.
I just called it a flat 1.4 million per case, nunc pro tunc, which means now for then, back to the date of each case opening. But cha-ching, the best part is it also says 100 acres per day. If the city of Gig Harbor has more than 100 acres, I will be very impressed. But I'll happily go ahead and file notice of superior claim over all the metes and bounds that their properties currently sit on. Why?
He thinks he's gonna steal the government's property.
Because they refused to return my weapons. And therefore agreed. If they want to take up the lien with somebody, they're going to have to talk to a guy named King Mahto. He is based out of Kenya, outside of the Hague jurisdiction.
King Mahto? Did he appoint someone as a king in a non-extraditable country because he thinks that does something? Or is King Mahto a fake identity that he has made up that he is saying is in Kenya? Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. That's something.
If they want to take up the lien with somebody, they're going to have to talk to a guy named King Mahto. He is based out of Kenya, outside of the Hague jurisdiction.
Okay, I'm getting the vibe that he's filing false liens and putting a fake address on the return address that goes to Kenya. Because I don't know if you know this, it's a felony to file false liens, which is what this is. Filing liens that he doesn't have the legal right to file. Felony. So I think he's just putting fake information on it so it doesn't come back to him.
So feel free to file a warrant for him if you want. But he's appointed Chief Mahto as domestic agent in commerce for the Mahto tribe. And that means it's my job to go out and represent or assist any one of my members who might be accidentally or unlawfully dragged into one of these courts. Why? Because we have given them notice that's being sent, I guess, anyway, registered mail, that we have a limited admiralty law license to operate in their jurisdictions.
No, you don't?
What is the limitation? The limitation is my notice to them that, hey, here's your show cause motion. Gonna need you to provide evidence why we don't have authority to remove every case
The only King Mahto you can find is an Instagram page that doesn't exist. Totally real.
in which one of our members' names appears to our courts. Your
Oh,
courts
what?
are
So just because a king doesn't have a social media presence, he must be fake? Millennials.
the foreign ones. Our courts are the de jure. So how can you tell us we can't bring
I
it
like that he says de jure, sound fancy, but basically he's just saying, our courts are the law.
there and
I am the law.
actually have our grand jury see whether or not there's an indictable offense for trafficking our offspring and us under color of law?
They weren't
Why
trafficked.
can't they determine whether or not it should be sent to our common law jury of 12 men who combine common law and equity together
12 even angrier
so that they can basically just
men.
do what it should have been done? And if there is no specified remedy because it's a common law jury, they get to make it up. I feel safe with that. A lot safer than I feel with courts that have bar association members. If you're not a U.S. citizen, what court could possibly sit there and tell us that they have authority or jurisdiction over us? You're not even U.S. citizens.
The Peach with a $1 tip says, the U.S. military will have something to say about a large amount of the land in Kitsap County. They have 3 installations in the county, along with all they own empty lots for weird reasons. Oh, that's funny. I'd love to see him try and take over a military base.
So tell me again where you get your authority to tell us that we can't remove your cases to our de jure courts? How does that?
Because they have power and you don't. Like, how is the nature of power hard for people to understand? Like, I'm not saying might makes right. It doesn't. But it certainly helps you accomplish your goals. Like, what are you talking about, man? Green guy with the $3 tip says, Hannah, I don't want to read that. It's gross.
That happened.
I know you gave me money, but I'm not going to read that one. I think it's gross.
That's like me
I think I gotta draw a line at some point if I think something's gross.
doing something in France and telling them you have no jurisdiction, even though I'm standing on your soil. It's removed to my courts. They're going to laugh in your face.
Sorry.
That's their land. So conversely, any foreign king, queen, religious leader, whoever, give me evidence. How do you have authority over our de jure lands? We're not the 574 federal.
In what way is the law yours by, or the land yours by law? It's not. Like, he's just saying it.
Recognize U.S. citizens.
Oh, it's fine, just a beat.
Slaves who you told where they may and may not roam. You gave them their borders within their own lands. Our lands are all the lands for the Republic. Why? Because my band of Indians are we the people. Our progenitors created the Constitution that created Congress, that created all the 14th Amendment.
Okay, so he is both... He is simultaneously claiming indigenous heritage and the heritage of the founding fathers or the framers of the Constitution? He's, like, do you see what he's doing? He is both claiming to be the antecedent of George Washington and tribal chiefs. Like, it's not impossible to have both of those, like, groups in your family tree, but to claim a social and, like, political connection to both in some sort of substantive way is rhetorically ridiculous, to be completely honest. It makes you look like an asshole.
U.S. citizens. So since we live up here and we're sovereign, go ask Neil Gorsuch. Who are you to tell us anything?
On the Supreme Court.
That we have to come to your courts. That's what I'm proposing to them. Hey, you think you have authority? Please give me the evidence. Take your time. When you do not reply, when you do not respond, and you have a duty to do that, that means that silence is acquiescence. You've agreed. I didn't write the rule book, but I'm using the rules. Why? Because I have Americans to protect. I have offspring to protect, babies. And again, we are not here for those that do not have eyes to see and ears to hear. If you disagree vehemently with anything that's been said in this tribal council meeting, this probably is not the tribe for you. This is for Bible-believing men of the Most High.
Famously, indigenous groups love Jesus Christ.
This is for fathers.
Thanks, Europeans, for bringing the light of Christ into our lives.
Who do not want to give up half of their property to a 304. This is for fathers who want to make sure that their babies can't be taken from them. There's a reason why we make you have a marriage contract and not obtain a marriage license. A license is admiralty law. You're asking for their jurisdiction. You don't know any better, but after you hear this, you do. If you do it after that, that's on you.
So 304, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
That includes you, pastors. You can sneak and hide and everything else, but if you're out there calling people on the wrong Sabbath day, you got the wrong name of the Most High and His Son, you got some serious stuff you need to consider. And if you want to call me legalistic, I'm going to need you again to point out where that word appears anywhere in the scriptures. Haven't found it yet.
If a word isn't in the Bible, is it even real?
Now, we've been doing things the same way for a long time. Does that mean it's right? Slavery was done the same way for a long time. Was that right?
Doesn't Christianity technically originate from the Middle East and Israel? Judea, yes.
When do we as men have an obligation to change things?
304 equals ho? Oh.
It's when we have an ability to and we have the knowledge to. This is now where we're at, men. Again, I do not know if Trump is controlled opposition, just like Rabbi Finkelstein said that they control both sides of every conflict.
Again, that's propaganda by neo-Nazis. He's citing neo-Nazi propaganda. Stone Corbell says, you know what else isn't in the scriptures? The Constitution. Checkmate. And vice versa.
But I do know that the book of Revelation and a bunch of other books in the scriptures tell us that we will have a 7-year famine, that we will not have the ability to buy or sell unless we have the mark of the beast. Who has to take that mark? All of the subjects of the crown, all of the subjects of the Vatican, the one world religion, the one world government. We have a one tribal government that invites all law-abiding people.
I think he means this. Take a look. 1304, obligation of good faith. Every contract or duty within the Uniform Commercial Code imposes an obligation of good faith in its performance and enforcement. Okay, he could be referencing that. He could be referencing the I word talk.
Men, women. Doesn't mean we're out there trying to stop them. We are not going to try and stop what's already been predicted. All we're trying to do is reach those who have the capacity.
Jitara says 304 is also frequently used in red pill and by extension black pill spaces. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Mental capacity as well as the spiritual capacity and desire to learn. No judgment. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But that's why we invite certain people to the tribal council meetings, so that they can share that knowledge and wisdom with us. The more people we have that understand these negotiable instruments, we want to have them on here so that they can share that knowledge and that wisdom with us. Generally speaking, women do not speak at a tribal council meeting among Indians.
Man, he hates women. He fucking hates women. It's crazy.
However, if we have a subject matter expert, I will
Fennikagami with 40 bits says, fun fact, plenty of indigenous people actually do like Jesus. There are testimonies of them identifying heavily with Jesus. What they don't like is having Jesus forced on them, and the church attempts to destroy their culture and spirituality. Yes, this guy's father actually went to one of those boarding schools where they basically forced, non-indigenous stuff on people.
Definitely make an exception. Why? Because they are there to educate, but she's not there to preach.
Does this guy have any followers? He does, some. He's not huge, but he has people in his group that are working with him. Kind of like Marcel. He has some, it's few, but their devotion seems strong.
They want to share information, teach, great. We're down for that. We're going to need all types of people.
Oh, sorry, there was a tip I missed. Just a Peach with a $20 tip says, Green Guy says hi to chat and wants another puppet song. Yep, Muppets. There we go, yeah, we do get another one. Full beans. What is that, 4 extra puppet songs? That stream's gonna be cringe. But I'll do it.
People in our villages to teach Hebrew, to teach at the Mahto University. This is a curriculum. You're going to find it's completely different than anybody else's. It's more closely related to the Spartan form than anything. Why? Because in the Indian village, the villagers raise the offspring. It means if one of the kids was doing something bad, they could just about guarantee they were going to get a tongue lashing or a shaming from one of their elders. Now, again, we live according to biblical law, so I don't care what other tribes do or what they believe in. I believe that if you spoil the rod, or you spare the rod, you spoil the child. Does that mean I believe in beating your kids senseless? Absolutely not.
I mean, it sounds like you want to beat your kids, so go fuck yourself. Wow, the neo-Nazi weirdo is into beating your children as a form of punishment? Fucking shocking.
Shouldn't be striking.
When is the special stream? I'm gonna have to look at my schedule for next week and see what days I don't work, because it's definitely gonna have to be on a day I don't work, because I will be exhausted if I have to sing for 3 hours and work that day.
A child in the head. I can count on one hand the time I ever had to put my hand on one of my offspring's bottoms to get their attention.
The number should be 0, because if you hit your kids, you failed as a parent. I don't care where you hit them. You're hitting them on the butt, because it doesn't show bruises. Whether you realize that's why you're doing it or not, that's the only difference. Your kid doesn't know or think or feel that there's some sort of difference between hitting them on the face or the ass, because it doesn't matter. It just hides the bruises, dipshit. Yes, we do also need the second anime day. Sorry, I got behind on that.
Why? Why does that get their attention? Because 99.9% of the time, daddy's doing nothing but hugging them and loving them and squeezing them.
I only abuse my children occasionally. Surely that's okay. It's not. Don't abuse your children. Don't put your hands in your children in anger. Don't fucking hit them like it's gonna fix anything. If your child is old enough to connect physical pain to an action, they're old enough to be disciplined in ways that don't involve you beating them. Period. 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 So fucking tired.
So to see something so out of character, anger, not only does that frighten them, which is half of the intent, the other half of the intent is to establish respect. Respect for who? The Aleph in the home. The one who protects mom. If you look at the interactions between fathers and daughters, fathers and sons, it is night and day. Why? Because we as fathers protect our baby girls. We want to hug them. We want them to know that daddy is always there. You're safe with me.
I don't think anyone is safe with you, least of all children, so please stop.
The boys, we take pride in beating the hell out of our sons because we love wrestling with them. We love doing the guy stuff together. Most women who truly understand men, they understand the fact that when you marry a man and you give him sons, you just have more sons. That husband of yours is a young boy at heart, always will be.
Okay, well maybe if you grew up and acted like an adult, your wife wouldn't have left you and taken the kids, you fucking loser. Sorry, I'm getting mad now. Now I'm mad. I'm mad. I try so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. No, seriously though, I tried to be pretty even-handed and talk about things with some level of objectivity. That's over now. Fuck this piece of shit. Fuck this piece of shit. What a horrible person. What a terrible goddamn human being.
He's going to yearn for that relationship with whatever female is in his life. Until you arrived, that was generally speaking, at least biblically, supposed to be his mother. According to our traditions, it was the grandmothers. The parents went out and hunted. They did that part. The grandparents raised our offspring. That's why they had the right to educate or discipline any one of the young baby warriors in the tribe.
Baby warriors. What an interesting rhetorical tool to justify putting your hands on a child.
Because it was
They're not a child that I'm hitting, they're a baby warrior.
a duty to educate them. Crazy Horse suckled off the breast of every woman in the tribe. Where does that happen in non-native cultures in the United States? I don't see the Amish doing that, to my knowledge. Mennonites, any of the other groups.
Is he aware that wet nurses have been a thing in other places throughout history?
Why would the natives do that? Because it meant something to be part of a tribe. I'm adopting all non-violent offenders who are currently incarcerated in all private prisons. Why? Because it is my duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. If they are in that
You
corner,
don't have guns, how are you gonna do it?
or excuse me, in that prison because of an admiralty crime,
I would bet money that he does have guns, they're just illegal guns that he doesn't have registered. If I had to guess, that's a complete guess. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy where the government would be like, alright, we're taking all your guns, and then he'd just be like, alright, I'm not gonna get any guns anymore. Like, he feels like the kind of guy that definitely has unregistered guns somewhere. H-Baird says Baby Warriors sounds like a rejected Fallout faction.
Commercial crime, and there is no victim. They're the victim.
Also a pretty good band name, Baby Warriors. Up next, Baby Warriors, but first, opening for Baby Warriors, it's El Topo Stigmata! Woo!
This is why the first member of my tribe was Adam Anderson. That's who was adopted. Why? Because he's a fellow veteran. It's without question that he qualifies for membership in the tribe, provided he doesn't have a past criminal record that would prohibit it. So is Philip Kemp. So are all these other organizations composed of veterans who are out here trying to do what's right. Only a Mahto man may lead a war party. What is a Mahto man? That's your equivalent of a judge, along with a soldier that's an expert at doing what he does. They have authority that exceeds other chiefs. They have authority that exceeds anybody. They are investigators. They investigate crimes against children. They coordinate with federal and international law enforcement authorities. They're part of the diplomatic corps for the chief, whether it's a territory, whether it's a village. These are highly capable men who are basically entrusted with ensuring that the laws for the republic are always enforced, that we do not have graft, gratuity, or corruption with any of the villages.
Overthought with 100 bits says, seems like he really wants to have a sense of community, but he's really screwed up on where the isolation he's feeling is coming from. Yeah, it's a weird amalgam of so many things. It's borderline indefinable.
These are appointed by territorial or by the chief.
I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. Well, I do. Consider gifting subs. We're a little behind for the month and only 13 away from being halfway to the goal. While I'm gone, New Chair will tell you about the Super Robot Red Baron. Pretty fun Toku series about giant fighting robots, which maybe isn't the most descriptive thing, but it's not a henshin thing, it's a giant robot thing, so that's descriptive. Most of my stuff is henshin. Alright, I'll be right back. Gavin, Gavin. Hi everyone, I'm back.
Tribal Council.
Red Baron got 2 sequel series and a remake anime series. What are they called? I'll look them up sometime and add them to my list.
I'm asking Trump to appoint our judges if, he doesn't have ones he already wants to use. Why? Because he should, not me. He's the one that has the experience. He's the one that has the knowledge. He can vet.
He wants to be independent from the United States, but also wants his judges to be United States judges. Do you see how it doesn't make any sense? He can't decide what he wants. Does he want to be at the highest tier of the American federal government? Or does he want to be separate from the federal government? He just wants power, I guess?
All the people, not me.
Jones Spoon.
He's in charge of our national defense, not me. Could it happen one day where you actually have a chief that is the president of the republic? Sure, but it's not going to be this chief.
He wants his group to be the highest executive office in the land? Again, like, what?
I was not called for that. I was called to lead people to Yahuwah. Donald Trump was called to actually lead the republic. I believe that's why he was the one who was put in the first place, instituted the Insurrection Act. And
He didn't.
from that began...
That's a QAnon talking point, if you don't know. The idea that Trump did the Insurrection Act. That's a QAnon talking point.
To operate a worldwide military operation that we've been seeing since. Because he needed to see how bad it could get, according to Jan Halper Hayes. So even though I support, and I will defend our republic, I do have questions on that topic. People died because everybody was
I
advocating.
haven't seen Q on the bingo card in a while. Yeah, most of the QAnon beliefs have just become mainstream Republican beliefs. So while there is a core of Q believers specifically, a lot of the casual Q people are just Republicans now. I mean, they already were Republicans, but, like, they're less distinguishable from every other Republican because a lot of the QAnon beliefs have just become mainstream Republican beliefs. I really don't know what else to say about it. Its purpose basically ended. It was successful. QAnon was such a success, it just became the beliefs of a large plurality of Republicans.
For the vaccine. Millions. Just like Revelation said millions would be killed by pestilence, famine, disease. Now they've swapped out the DNA. Do you know what happens in the copyright?
What's the Discord rules on parody dicks? Say the LA state governor riding an LSU tiger-striped dick on a float with smaller dicks on oil derricks. Is this like a political comic? If it's like a political comic that you could post on Twitter or Blue Sky, it's fine. It just can't be porn. Anything that would require you to be 18 plus, basically. Because I don't want to start taking people's driver's licenses for the Discord.
World.
I just don't want that responsibility. I don't want to see people's public, like, private information. So, think about it from that angle. Could you post this to Blue Sky or Twitter or whatever?
Technically, you're no longer human. Why? Because now you have copyrighted DNA. They could literally come in their world and tell you, sorry, you're now our property. Why? Because you're patented. There's a copyright.
To be clear, even if your DNA was copyrighted, it wouldn't mean that you are a slave. It would mean that they can monetize your genetic code. Doesn't mean you personally are a slave.
On you. Means now we own you because you're not actually 100% human anymore.
That's not how any of that works.
You now have this DNA strand over here. So while we might not recognize the importance of these topics right now, friends, in the long run, we need to be cognizant of why we're here and what the overall purpose is. Again, we're not here to tear down any governments. We're here to cooperate with our local agencies. We're here to spread the word. If we have the social
the people finally showed back up at the end.
media page, it's because we want to educate people. We want to make sure that they understand what they're going to benefit from by becoming part of our tribe. How are you going to benefit financially? You keep 90% of what you generate. How are you going to benefit socially? Can't have your stuff censored anymore, unless it's pornographic or something like that. How are you going to be protected? If they can't refute the claims that I've made, then all cases with your names on it and any admiralty jurisdiction can be removed to the village council as soon as that village is formed.
Why does he keep saying edumacate? It's a Gen X joke. It's basically a Simpsons joke, so Gen X uses it a lot. It's just a way to say education or educate, but it's funny because you're mispronouncing it. Because do you get it? The joke is they're mispronouncing it. You'll hear Gen X people make that joke a lot.
As soon as that court is formed, then you can do it.
He did say overstand. They believe that saying understand puts you under the authority of whatever jurisdiction you're afraid of being put under.
A counterclaim. Now the jury can award things like the property of all these people who engaged in this trafficking operation.
Sean Corbell says he said edumacate instead of educate twice now. I thought it was just a dumb dad joke at first, but now I'm thinking it means something to him other than a joke on the word educate. I don't think it does. I think he just thinks it's funny.
as well as their freedom or their lives if they so choose. And again, I'm waiting for anybody out there to show me how this is not the case, or it will assume to be true. That's how the law works. So before we close here for today, gentlemen, I do have another meeting I got to run to here, but are there any questions? I see we have one chat here. Okay. Is there anything specific I can answer before I have to head out?
So in the chat room a little bit ago, somebody posted a PDF with a list of all of the United Nations treaties and stuff like that, who they have treaties with. How long do you think it'll take for our names to appear on that treaty list since we
Uh-oh! Someone's checking your work, Mahto. What are you gonna do?
applied August 28th of 2024?
I didn't apply for any treaty.
Okay.
What I did is I told them that this is who we are.
Mhm.
And because of the declaration that the UN gave,
Yeah.
which was, here's the rights of indigenous people, we're just simply telling them, hey, this is who we are. Because who asked for permission? Servants.
Only servants do.
Okay, but you can't just declare yourself indigenous. That's not how any of this works.
Yes.
We don't. We're just telling them, hey, this is who we are. These are our laws. Go ahead and tell us any authority you have that supersedes ours. We'll wait.
They're the UN, they don't. What does he think the UN's job is? The UN doesn't have, like, direct authority over any particular, like country. It's more or less a place where countries can get together and try and solve issues and communicate without going to violence. They don't have direct, like, power to do things unless they get kind of a resounding agreement to go into a place with UN peacekeeper troops, which doesn't happen often. Like, you can't just say things and expect that it's real.
So will there be a point where we're able to point at something that indicates that it's been either acknowledged versus just ignored?
Yeah, that will be when I have the actual DUNS number, EIN, cage code, and everything else for the Mahto courts.
Okay, perfect.
Once those are in force,
Yeah,
that's the
very true, Amber.
limited admiralty law license being used. Because if you're on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation, they have a ticket book.
Cool.
If they write you a ticket, you're going to go to you're going to go to tribal court. Even if you're a white person, I doubt they would try to do anything to you unless it was you had harmed an Indian. But
Right.
then it wouldn't be in tribal court. That's a federal offense.
Yeah.
So, although, let me just touch on this before I leave real fast. It's a federal offense for any U.S. citizen to touch an Indian on reservation land. But remember, if you're part of the Mahto tribe, every single citizen and all of their lands, we have original superior title claim to that. So if one were traversing on one of their lands and they got a ticket or they got pulled into that court, excuse me, judge, here's my title claim to this property or this land.
He thinks that he can claim if he gets a speeding ticket, actually, I'm indigenous and I own this land, therefore you can't ticket me. No, that won't work. You will get laughed out of court with a fine and probably court costs.
You have a property title claim. Which one's superior? Conversation ends there. So I think it's going to get pretty interesting what could happen with this. But again, that was the whole reason why I offered.
Odd Tall Man says as a Gen Xer, ouch. I want to be clear. I wasn't saying there's anything bad about the edumacate joke. It's just something I've noticed. If you want me to shit on millennials, the generation I'm a part of, for some sort of, like, even thing, millennials have a tendency to wrap their personalities around IP that they like, and it's incredibly cringy. Stop forcing your children to be into franchises you're into because your personality has been hollowed out by capitalism and inserted with Funko Pops where your organs should be. All right, Breven.
Or why I adopted Trump essentially as well. He has to accept that, but if he does, then he too is a U.S. citizen, and just like the U.S. president, the chief.
I say well dressed is one of my favorite fictional characters from like a 7-movie franchise.
We talked about that a little bit yesterday. What are some of the exclusive rights that I have that does not pass to the next chief? That, along with, being able to remove anybody from the tribe or add them to it if they're legally entitled to, It is the ability to pardon any U.S. or excuse me, any one of my members or anybody operating in our territories. That would include Trump. So if we put a notice in there that, hey, this case and this sentencing
And just don't have kids. It's easier to do with pets. True.
that you think is going to occur in November, that's now being removed to our jurisdiction in New York. And that means that we will handle the case, we will do the counterclaim, we'll tell you whether or not he's guilty. Why? Because Bar Association agents were the ones that actually orchestrated that. And none of them were U.S. citizens. So unfortunately, the chief, not the tribe, the chief, doesn't recognize it. He wants you to tell him why you have authority and why that's a valid anything.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Chief, quick
So-
question, and then I'll let you go.
Hey, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Are there any Supreme Court cases that shows that the Indian reservations has authority over over the lands?
That case that you're referring to isn't, well, Marbury v. Madison, I think would apply definitely.
Okay.
But
That's the case where they established judicial review?
you could also look up, it was, the hell was it? It was the Cherokee tribe. I think they just recently had a dispute with the state. But you have to remember that the entire Constitution itself, right? The original ones, it says Indians not taxed. Now, in their current system that these foreigners use, if you look up the definition of an Indian, it is a Washingtonian, Idahoan, Montanan, right? So by virtue of being an Indian, we are the only sovereign nation here, which is why the court cases that you mentioned, they all came from a corporate U.S. Supreme Court, right?
Doesn't understand Marbury is the vibe I get from this entire thing. That's a pretty common sovereign citizen thing, is that they don't understand the concept of judicial review. They think that they can look at something in the law and go, I don't think that's constitutional, therefore I'm not going to follow that law. That's not the direction it flows. It doesn't flow from grassroots people deciding, I don't think this is constitutional, so I'm not going to follow this law. It's top down. A court at some point, whether it be the Supreme Court or some lower court that makes a decision, reviews it and then decides it's unconstitutional. Sovereign citizens, though, think that they personally get to be the arbiter of what is and is not in line with the U.S. Constitution. So if they see a state or local ordinance or law that they don't agree with, they just say, well, I think that that is unconstitutional, so I don't have to do it. Not how it works. If you think that, you got to go to court over it and have a judge agree with you. You can't just do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's never
Well-
been a de jure Indian Supreme Court. They've all been the original 1789 Supreme Court. So that's why we follow those. Those are all of the case laws, right? But at any time, if you have a de jure nation, right, of people, and their people are subject to their courts, and they're the sovereigns, it's not the foreigners. I don't know any court jurisdiction anywhere where any country allows some outside country to tell them that they have to have their court cases in that country. Any sovereign nation
You're not a country.
could tell them to pound sand. Why? Because it's their members and their soil.
H. Baird says it kind of does come from the ground up. A lot of activism is about finding or creating a plaintiff. Scopes from the Scopes monkey trial deliberately broke Tennessee's law to start a court process. Let me be clear on what I say about that. When I say it doesn't start ground up, what I mean is individuals don't usually do that. It is usually a concerted effort by which they find a test case to run up the courts. It's not one guy just saying, all right, fuck this. It's usually a legal team that finds a case, or a legal team that, like, intentionally has people do something to kick off the case. It's a team effort that needs to go to the courts for them to decide. It's not just one guy, is what I'm trying to say, generally. That better explanation for what I'm trying to get across? Holy Input, thanks for gifting 2 tier 1 subs, 11 subs away to halfway to our sub goal.
The one thing that most Americans don't get is that we have foreigners licensing us on our soil. We just have to get everybody on the same page as to where you live. That's what the tribe does. Now, we're going to have that question in the future. It's indisputable. Of course, it's going to have to come to a head. Whose actual Supreme Court matters? If by that time we have the majority of every county, we have the majority of every territory.
Wow, once again, like Marcel, he has the delusion that more than half of the population of the United States is going to voluntarily agree to join his community. Wow, I can't believe that.
I think you know the answer to that
I
question.
want to see a Mahto versus Marcel fight. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, because the current Supreme Court runs on common law.
Green guy with a $3 tip says, Hannah, I feel like you watch the same people a lot. Yeah, sorry. That's mean, but yeah.
The current.
No, the current Supreme Court runs on the
I find them interesting.
combination of both. They always tell you the truth. If you look at the case, Newby v. Enron, it explains exclusive equity and why it's still alive. If you look at the case of Shuttlesworth versus, it's the other one, which basically explains that we have two governments working at the same time. Somebody else helped me out with that. But part of it was the Erie Railroad, but also it was later articulated in another case very clearly, or an earlier case. It was like Chuck Shooks something. It'll come to me. But in that case, it explains the nature of a U.S. citizen and a state citizen. And that's really what the difference is. All of their cases had to do with the corporate and the common law, but people are now living under the admiralty system and they do not understand the words. So when they're reading all of these decisions, they're taking that person and they're thinking that's a man.
Right.
And
That's kind of why I was asking the question, going back to the Supreme Court case all the way back to the 1776 of land and ownership of the land. Because currently today, the deeds, you don't own that, right?
it actually goes back even farther. It goes back to the original SESQB Trust Act of 1666. Have you ever read that?
I have not. And that's what I'm doing is I'm going through all these court cases and looking this stuff up and researching. Carl Miller has some great information out there and how he pulls it all together and it shows you where your rights really, really belong. And if it wasn't for the Constitution of the United States, we would all be hosed.
Well, we are almost already. Again, the reason we're doing our elections now is so that we very clearly articulate to people that we are a different society.
Right.
We have different times for our elections. We recognize you, U.S. citizen servants. That's why we give you 50% discounts in our villages. You can't argue that we're out here to support you, right?
Right.
Check and mate.
Is there anybody else that does anything similar to?
I really wonder if he could set up one of these communities, how quickly it would spiral. Because it would be a cult. He's an aspiring cult leader in my estimation, whether he consciously realizes that or not. What he is looking for is a cult-like scenario in which he has power over a community of people that follow rules that he thinks are right, you know? I don't know. Just fucked up. Green guy with another tip says, you like crazy men aged 30 to 60, or just the opposite? I mean, women 30 plus. I like weird, bizarre beliefs people have. It's fascinating to me how people delude themselves. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Carl Miller, that is alive?
Yeah, the guy
Carl
down
Miller.
in California with the long beard, Bill or William. What is his name? Anyway, Robert knows him. He's talked to him. And then Robert, of course, my buddy that was on here the one time. And then you've got Yusufel. He's got great information on his website. You have another guy that does...
Someone recommended that cat cult thing on Netflix, or not Netflix, Max, by the way, HBO. I watched the episode and I found it interesting, but then I started watching some of the other episodes of that same documentary series. I'm kind of thinking it's hacky, because I was watching the Bam Margera episode, and that felt like the sloppiest fucking reporting on anything I'd seen in a long time. the host seemed like she was into tabloid crap. So I do want to say that cat cult one was interesting, but I'm suspect of the veracity of its claims because the host seems less than journalistically pristine. Let me put it that way.
Exclusive equity, but again, he's one of these jackasses that charges $3,000 for his trust document.
And I think that's bullshit because we shouldn't be charging
Yeah, this is all yapping at this point. He has not set up any of these villages.
for that type of information.
And to be clear, I don't think he will. I don't think he'll get that far, but...
That's
Well,
why
again,
I'm going to
we're
be sitting
believers.
down with Chief and maybe even putting together templates for the 12 presumptions for court. I don't need them myself right
Yeah.
now,
Well, I've got
But-
that right here in front of me, the 12
but-
presumptions of the court.
and that's fine. You
Mhm.
should post that in the meeting of the minds, but I'm talking about creating a document that we're supposed to submit with each of those things listed in the right verbiage. We don't want to say it wrong, you know?
Yep. All right, man. Well, I got to let you go for today, but I'll look forward to chatting with you more tomorrow, and I'm going to get some more guests on here too.
So, Chief, tomorrow we got a call.
So that's the first one. Let's see what his other videos are lately. 11:14, 11:15. You did 2 days in a row of these?
Shalom, friends. How are we doing today?
Shalom.
This is Chief Mahto. Going to open up this meeting in prayer. And I'm going to roll through this really fast
Oh,
in terms
Telegram.
of my best interpretation of what my opinion. Again,
Oh, 12 presumptions of the court. This is going to be bullshit.
12 presumptions.
I was showing something else.
All right. So now we
Hold
can
on,
see.
I want to look at his desktop real
Here,
quick.
let me show you.
Okay, go ahead.
12 presumptions.
All right, let's see. Recycle bin. 1969 C10 title font. German version. His logo is... Oh my god, he's one of these people that just saves everything to his desktop. His logo's on his desktop, Kindle Create. Laminite Wars. Rheum Automated something. Navy Federal something. NordVPN. A document titled How the Militia... Mahto Village JPEG. Money Debt Letter. Password Boss. Microsoft Word, Bitdefender, Twitch. Oh, nice. NordVPN. Oh, wait, he has NordPass and NordVPN. Firefox, Zoom, a link to his own channel on his desktop. OBS Studio, PC Health Checker, the FCC website, a Informer Pauperous PDF. So I assume he filed a lawsuit in form of pauperous, which means asking to not have to file fees because you're poor. Creditor language. I want to read these documents.
I was showing something else.
All right. So now we can see this. If you can't see it, I'm assuming you'll put it in the chat. Again, we'll go through this right now.
I'll have you know, chat, despite the fact that I have a lot of tabs often, my desktop is immaculate. It's beautiful.
Now and then afterwards, if you have any questions after I'm done reading the document, please then ask the questions. If we ask them in the middle,
Just a Peach says, land in Kitsap County is very expensive. It starts at 300,000 plus.
not only
But he just gets it because he said so.
generally is it going to probably be answered by the time we get to the end, but it throws off the entire rhythm. So please just write down or put it in the chat. That's good as well if you have any questions, okay?
Mahto, Troy says, Mahto and you say shalom in the exact same tone and cadence as David Lynch playing Gordon Cole in Twin Peaks saying hello. I love David Lynch. R.I.P. What a fucking guy. I love Eraserhead. That pretentious? I don't mean it in a pretentious way. I just really like that fucking movie. So weird. Enjoy it.
So let's move forward here under the 12 presumptions of the court, starting with canon.
The green guy with a $6 tip says, I think I'll stop tipping and just let my wife tip. You guys can do whatever. It's good. You're good.
3228. What is canon law? Canon law is ecclesiastical law. Who owns all of the canon law? The Catholic Church. It's actually licensed, it's copyrighted and trademarked. That's why one has to have a license to practice law to be in their court. So whenever you walk into their court and you have not yet filed a notice of special appearance, then one makes a general appearance. And by making a general appearance, one necessarily extends jurisdiction to these people.
You don't need to extend it. They have it. They have jurisdiction. You showed up to court. They have jurisdiction. Even if you didn't show up to court, they'd have jurisdiction. But the fact that you showed up at all means even you understand they have jurisdiction. Otherwise, they would have come arrested you. They would have issued a bench warrant. The fact that they can issue a bench warrant legally and then come have the sheriff's office arrest you for not appearing in court means they have jurisdiction.
So
Joan Corbell says, Inland Empire is one of my favorite movies. I fear that's more pretentious than Eraserhead. I showed Inland Empire to some of my friends, and after it was over, there was a long silence, and one said they hated it. God. It's hard to show some movies to people. Because, like, not every a lot of people watch movies, and I'm not saying this in a pretentious way. I totally understand this, and there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of people watch movies because, like, oh, fuck yeah, movies. They just want, like, something exciting or entertaining or funny. So sometimes it's hard to show people movies that are just, like, weird. Or just, like, weird. I don't know how to describe it. Because then you gotta be like, no, you don't get it. And then you're the asshole.
Posted on 14, okay? Researcher ferreted out these presumptions.
Like, I love the movie Happiness, for instance. I don't know if people have seen the movie Happiness. But I can't show that to anyone. What, am I gonna show them that fucking movie and then be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm gonna show people fucking Irreversible? I'm gonna sit down and be like, oh, let's watch Enter the Void.
So that means that these are written down somewhere in the British Accreditation Regency. If you look at that website for the bar or British Accreditation Regency, you'll see that they have a litany of different corporate entities that they license. Why? Because that obscures what their true intent is.
Hell yeah, Letitia, like Patricia, you have good taste.
What is the true intent? It's to
We do another movie soon. I know we talked about doing I Saw the TV Glow. Definitely need to do that.
Operate all Nisi Prius courts that enslave all mankind. Let me repeat that. Is to operate all Nisi Prius courts to enslave all mankind under what? Admiralty law. What is Admiralty law? It has been around since the Phoenicians, since the Canaanites, since all these other people who used to operate ships on the ocean. Was it in the exact form it is today? No.
Old Boy is another one that might weird people out. Honestly, I think Old Boy, if you wanted to introduce people to, like, it's a little weird, like, it's like, oh, this is gonna be kind of controversial at the end, Old Boy's not a bad one. I think Old Boy actually holds up really well for an American audience for the most part. Yeah, the end it depends on who's watching it, I guess. I like that ending. It's fucked up, but that's the point. That's the point, man. I don't know. I'm in a film club now, and I've never felt older when I had to look at a bunch of Zoomers talking about what they think of Blazing Saddles. And it's like, I can't show anyone anything anymore. Just a Peach says, I love mysteries like Marple, Poirot, and Murder, She Wrote. Me too! I have a whole Sherlock Holmes collection. I'm trying to collect as much Sherlock Holmes movies and TV shows as possible, including Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. Good stuff. Blazing Saddles is fantastic, though. Yeah, but now I'm the boomer, you know? Comedy is a moving target. It changes, and things that were hilarious decades ago are seen as problematic today. Rightfully so in most cases. And I get it. I get how to a Zoomer, Blazing Saddles plays very different to someone back in the day, or even when I watched it in the early 2000s, but It's interesting to see tastes and how people view things different.
What did it look like? It looked different language, but much of the same terminology is there, at least in functionality, especially when you're talking about banking entities.
I'm glad Troy on YouTube has also seen Happiness. Glad you enjoyed that one too. It's in the Criterion collection now. They released a 4K and it looks beautiful.
And things done there. So the fruit of a poisonous tree is actually a legal term. And that means that if something was obtained, this generally refers to search warrants. But if the information from a search warrant was obtained illegally, then that means everything that came from that is fruit of the poisonous tree and must be necessarily thrown out of the case.
What did he say is fruit of the poisonous tree? Sorry, I was talking about my bullshit hobby. I'm telling you, I need to just start doing a weekly movie stream so I get it out of my system so I'm not distracted in other streams.
If you look at that website for the bar or British Accreditation Regency, you'll see that they have a litany of different corporate entities that they license. Why? Because that obscures what their true intent is. What is the true intent? It's to operate all nisi prius courts that enslave all mankind. Let me repeat that. Is to operate all nisi prius courts to enslave all mankind under what? Admiralty law. What is Admiralty law? It has been around since the Phoenicians, since the Canaanites, since all these other people who used to operate ships on the ocean. Was it in the exact form it is today? No.
Information that was gotten from an illegally obtained search warrant? It would be if it's illegally obtained. Why is he claiming it was an illegal search warrant?
What did it look like? It looked different language, but much of the same terminology is there, at least in functionality, especially when you're talking about banking entities and things done there. So the fruit of a poisonous tree is actually a legal term. And that means that if something was obtained, this generally refers to search warrants, but if the information from a search warrant was obtained illegally, then that means everything that came from that is fruit of the poisonous tree. Must
correct, yes.
Be necessarily thrown out of the case.
Amber says, we're glad you're our friend. I'm glad too.
This is how sickos walk sometimes. It's a technicality. So the scheme also provided for the control of the courts via the 1913 creation of the American Bar Association. That was not when it was created. It was created in 1879. That's when it was created. The European International Bar Association was a creation of the Rothschilds.
What?
Who owns the currency? Who sits atop the Masonic structures? Who are the generational families from the Italian lines? That is Rothschilds. That name child is in there for a reason.
What? Oh, is he trying to connect it to QAnon stuff? Gitaris says, I haven't seen Blazing Saddles until my girlfriend insisted we watch it. I ended up enjoying it, but it was awkward that I learned where she got the saying, it's twoo, when we were being intimate once.
Allows them to practice law. What type of law? Is it biblical law? No. It is legal. That's the difference between legal and lawful. Lawful means God's law. Legal means the undoing of God's law. Go look it up in the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition.
Hydrate.
That's literally what it means.
I have a little bit, enough for one.
So it's admiralty law or contract law. So who owns the United Postal Union? England.
No, incorrect.
This is how all commerce was conducted and traded back in the day before we had states, computers, fax machines.
Have I seen Holy Mountain? It's Jodorowsky. It changes plot and style 3 times. I'm actually in the middle of watching Jodorowsky stuff right now. I watched El Topo for the first time the other day. I plan on watching Holy Mountain soon. I also have this that someone sent a while back, which I think was his first movie, Fando Eliz? I don't know the actual pronunciation, sorry. But I did watch El Topo, and it was great, so I'm very excited for Holy Mountain. Juggle, will do.
And whatnot. It was all done via the mail, generally registered mail. Why? Because that creates a contract. That's why if you put a registered mail piece on the Postal Service counter, the second they stamp that, it goes into a locked box. Okay. Hold on one second. I'm going to get Robert on the line with this. Forgot to do that originally. We'll just see if he wants to talk first. If not, I'll let him also weigh in on these. But hold on one second. Bringing him on, see if he answers. Robert. Hey, brother, you there?
We did it. Oh, KF Logan.
I can hear you. So can everybody.
Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, Raiders. I'm Hannah. I look at the world of the weird. I look at conspiracy theorists, sovereign citizens, all sorts of weird internet cults and beliefs. Give me a follow. We do lots of fun stuff here, and I also wear a different costume every day as voted on by our Discord. Make sure, if you haven't already, you check out KF Logan 1875 here on Twitch. Could we get a shout out for KF Logan, please? Hope your stream was good. Right now, we're nearing the end of stream, but we are watching a sovereign citizen who calls himself Chief Mahto. He calls himself an indigenous Indian chief. He's not. Those are his words, not mine, by the way. He's not. He just made up his own tribe, and he's trying to secede from the U.S. government. But also, he's a big fan of Donald Trump. Very weird guy. Bro Dieg99, thanks for following.
Else, I believe, but we are.
There's that shout out for KF Logan. Make sure you check out his channel.
We're covering the 12 assumptions of the bar right now. If you want to chime in at any point, go ahead and do that. Okay.
If you don't know what a sovereign citizen is, by the way, basically they think the laws don't apply to them. They think they don't need to pay taxes or have a driver's license in order to drive on the road, have insurance. And this guy happens to be a neo-Nazi. He happens to be an anti-Semite conspiracy theorist, so he's an awful person. Benikagami says, CTs, cons, and libs all operate under the belief that rules are magical and have their own power. The difference is libs think it's all rules and can't imagine operating outside of them, and CTs and cons think the rules they personally favor are magical. This is why Elon and Trump don't terrify them. They basically think some force in the rules will rein those two in before it goes too far. Plus, cons assume they are the good team, so Elon and Trump are incapable of doing evil things. Yes, they subscribe to individuals are good and evil, and their actions, morality is dictated by their identity, as opposed to recognizing specific actions as good or evil. Let's see, there was a tip. Just a Peach says, no, 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 no to all of this. Very, very true.
But I'm just covering it for one of the members real fast, all right? Okay, here we go. So the common law of the people to be replaced as it gave the natural man many jurisdictional protections from the bankers' legislations. Why? Because the bankers all work in commerce. They're in the fictional realm, the matrix. A Roman court does not operate according to any true rule of law, but by presumptions of the law. So unless those presumptions are negated or refuted and that is put on the public or court record, excuse me, then that means that their assumptions and presumptions will stand. Here are the key assumptions, okay? Private bar guilds. And if they're unchallenged...
Yeah, I'm sure Green Guy will be okay. He just needs some water, Moslov. I'm sure he's good.
Stand being true.
Yes, Matrix on the bingo card, if we were playing, but we're not. And Harold Elbleman says, don't forget he also thinks he's a, quote, Native American, Black African, Messianic Jew. Yes, despite being anti-Semitic, he, as basically an evangelical Christian, he is anti-Semitic, and he is stealing the identity of Jewishness. He is claiming that he's a Messianic Jew. He's not Jewish. He's a Christian, but because Jews are God's chosen people, as per the Bible, he's taking that title, basically, despite not being Jewish. It's very messed up. He's also claiming to be black, which he's not. The indigenous thing is a little more complicated because his family actually is, in part, indigenous, but it's been long enough that his blood quantum level of, like, indigenousness, he wasn't allowed in his, like, tribal community. At least that's what he claims, basically. He says it's apartheid. So, not sure what the whole story there is, but he's an interesting fella.
Okay. The presumption of public record is that any matter brought before a lower Roman court is a matter for the public record when in
Wait,
fact
there's a sequel to Happiness?
it is presumed by the members of the private bar guild that the matter is a private bar guild business matter. Why is it private?
Oh, and for the Raiders, these are all my movies. Well, not all of them, many of them. I collect movies and talk about them a lot.
Because you're not part of the club. Very simple. The presumption of public service is that all the members of the private bar guild who have all sworn a solemn, secret, absolute oath to their guild then act as public agents of the government or public officials by making additional oaths of public office that openly and deliberately contradict their private superior oaths to their own guild. What oath is that? That is the oath to the bar. If you read that oath, it says their oath and their duty first is to the court, not to the client. We don't see that on TV, do we? We're told that it's, oh no, I'm here to protect my client. No, you're not.
That is their role, is to protect their client and be a zealous advocate, and you feel like you don't have that, then you can appeal based on the grounds that you had ineffective assistance of counsel. It's not a perfect system. It fucks up a lot. But to say that, like, generally attorneys don't want to do a good job for their clients is just not the reality. I have friends who are lawyers. I know how they feel about their clients. They can get frustrated sometimes when their clients don't listen. But, nonetheless, they care about doing their best for them. The situation isn't always ideal, but they do their best to zealously advocate for their client, and that is their duty as an attorney.
You're there to put your client in
Oh, it's good just to peach. I'm just worried about him. Hope he's doing good.
dishonor by actually filing a plea rather than a plea in abatement, asking them, hey, you know, I know you think you have something going here, but can you please prove to me how in the hell I got before you? Where your authority is. Pretty sure I read somewhere in the 6th Amendment to the Constitution for 1789, I have a right to confront my accuser or know the cause and the nature of this action. Right now, I'm more confused than on a honeymoon, Judge. Can you tell me how we got here? Is there
That's a pretty common Sobsit tactic, is to basically claim, I don't understand. Now, of course, this comes through because Sobsits also often believe that saying they understand is a secret code that means they stand under the authority of the court, thus giving them jurisdiction. That's, of course, not true, but it's also a stall tactic. They think if you say to a judge, I don't understand these charges, the nature of them, the cause, they think that they can stop the court proceeding, basically, just stick a wrench in the gears and make it stop. Luckily, American jurisprudence has been going on for a couple centuries now, and believe it or not, you're not the first defendant to ever think that they could just say shit like that and just stop everything. So, they've already found ways to deal with that. You're not the first person to try and do that. Fun fact.
Contract? Is this a criminal action? Is it a civil action? Because if it's a criminal action, the laws for this nation only allow 2 types of criminal courts. One of them is Article 3 court that requires a victim. The other one is a condition of contract in an admiralty jurisdiction. So unless I see one of these, I have yet to understand how we're standing here.
Again, you're incorrect about that. No, it's not admiralty jurisdiction, and it's not common law. It's statutory, criminal, or civil, depending on what the deal is that you're going through. Penikagami with 40 bits says, one more thing. I reject the idea that Trump and Elon and our enemies in general aren't stupid and know what they're doing. I personally can think of a ton of ways they could accomplish their goals more effectively. The thing is, the system is set up in such a way, and they have so much power, that their competency is irrelevant to their ability to do harm and somewhat succeed. Call it failing upwards for a reason. Don't let them convince us they're unbeatable. That will paralyze us. That's pretty much my take on it, too. I do believe much of their intent we would consider malicious, though they would not. And a lot of the destructive everything about it is because they're incompetent. It's because they don't know what they're doing, really. And they're being just as guided by right-wing propaganda as your average Fox News viewer. Except this average Fox News viewer is the President of the United States, which isn't good.
These are the presumptions that you must overcome and be able to stand on that square in front of any one of these Title 4D Section 666 agents. So number 3, presumption of public oath is that all members of the private bar guild acting in the capacity of quote unquote public officials who have sworn a solemn public oath remain bound by that oath and therefore bound to serve honestly, impartially, and fairly as dictated by their oath. Look at those words, honestly, impartiality, and fairly. If you're not a part of the club that's sitting there adjudicating the matter and they all stand to gain financially from it, can you be?
They get paid either way. They get paid whether they win or lose. They're a public defender or your lawyer you're paying. The judge, the prosecutor, their pay is not dependent on whether or not you are prosecuted. They are paid to be there. They are salaried. It does not matter if you get prosecuted or not to them, financially speaking. Unfortunately, a lot of sovereign citizens believe that secretly, when they charge you with a crime, they're taking money out of your super secret bank account that everyone has. They don't, but they think that.
Be impartial. Can you have a judge sit there and adjudicate a matter having to do with the driver's license if the judge has a driver's license? I would call that a clear conflict of interest, Judge.
It's a conflict of interest because the judge is following the law? That's a unique legal argument. Excuse you, objection. The judge is biased because he's not breaking the law like I am. Dingus Van Sant, thanks for following.
Pay taxes? Then what permission do you have to speak to me? You're clearly conflicted.
Again, if you don't break the same laws I do, you're not allowed to adjudicate matters that I'm a part of.
I don't pay taxes because the Constitution says in no less than 2 places for 1789, Indians not taxed.
Oh boy, he's like super fucked, isn't he?
I'm not part of your society. You have to be able to articulate that, or again, the presumption stands. Immunity is that key members of the private bar guild in the capacity of public officials acting as judges, prosecutors, and magistrates who have sworn a solemn public oath in good faith are immune from personal claims of injury and liability. Is that true? There was an attorney who actually went against the bar, got disbarred, ended up with like a $2 trillion debt against the, I believe, state of Washington. And then in COVID, he sold that to the government of Greece. And then skipped town.
What? You're saying he sold a debt of $2 trillion to the country Greece? What?
How was he able to do that? He was able to do that in the UCC. That's
the UCC is the Uniform Commercial Code in the United States. What does it have to do with fucking Greece?
Guys file all their stuff. Robert is our resident expert on that. I'm sure he'll cover that at some point if he doesn't mind. But let's go to the 5th presumption. And by the way, that immunity, of course, is if it's an American or a U.S. citizen that's trying to file that lien. If it is in fact a foreign grantor's trust based outside of the Hague jurisdiction for abduction or adoption, and that lien holder files the lien, where does that case get adjudicated if it's not in the Hague jurisdiction? Lots of questions there for us to discuss later. Summons is that by custom a summons unrebutted stands, and therefore one who attends court is presumed to accept a position. Who do we summon?
Kyle Grease stopped Skynet. You know what I appreciate they've never done? They so easily during this multiverse craze could have done some stupid fucking Terminator movie where it's all the different John Connors. Like, you know how there's a different John Connor actor in like every movie? They should have got all them together and done a really stupid Terminator multiverse movie. Most of those movies are crap anyway, so I wouldn't have even noticed.
The dead. These are all caps entities. Why does an attorney represent? Because it's a dead entity. It has to be represented. That's why they cannot hear the living man. That's why you must claim the name when you walk in, or they cannot proceed. Why? Because you have to give them jurisdiction. They're standing there pretending to be the beneficiary and accusing you of not managing your minor estate properly. Thus, they have to step in an hour entitled to remuneration for their activities. It's all horseshit designed as law. Presumption of custody is that by custom, a summons or a warrant for arrest unrebutted stands. and therefore one who attends court is presumed to be
I bet Dad is offended by the Terminator take. It's not even a hot take. People generally like Terminator 1, and Terminator 2 is one of those sequels that people say is better than the first one. Debatable, but I get where they're coming from. 3 is watchable. I don't like 3 very much, but I can watch it. After that, no thank you. Nah. I gave up after Genesis.
thing and therefore liable to be detained in custody by custodians. So what are they talking about? Remember, we live in a bankrupt economy. There is no money. So the only way to create money is to create debts.
No, the country isn't bankrupt. Society isn't bankrupt. Money is real. Do you know why? Because I can go outside and use it to purchase goods and services. That's what money is. I can use it to buy goods and pay for services and service debts. It's money. What do you think money is?
So when one walks in there and
I still haven't seen Dark Fate. I've heard Dark Fate was better than a lot of the other sequels, but I haven't seen it.
Plead, that means that you've accepted. You've accepted the debt. Now you are the surety. You're no longer the implied surety. The lowercase spelling is the implied surety, the man. But when you walk in and you claim that name, you say, yeah, that's me. Okay, well, great. Now you're the surety. We're going to hold your body as surety for any debts, bonds, liens that we file and sell out there on the stock market so it can be hypothecated. This is what Revelation is talking about when it says the souls of men. This is how they are bought and sold. So how do you get into that custody? You contracted in. How? Driver's license, selective service registration.
You legally have to sign up for selective service if you're a man at 18. Like, that's just a fact. That's illegal. They're going to yell at you if you don't do that.
Bunch of other things. If you go get that form from the post
I had to sign up for selective service.
office, I was just going over that.
Luckily, with this one neat trick, I'm not eligible for military service anymore.
With Albert.
Time T with 40 bits says there are lots of international norms that determine how cases that cross country borders are handled. Most of them involve jurisdiction by the nationality of the victim, sometimes the nationality of those persons who committed the crime, and finally jurisdiction based on the location where the crime was committed. All those "you can go to this place and get away with murder" jokes aren't really accurate unless no one involved is a citizen of anywhere.
It literally says on there it's a felony to not file for selective service, and it clearly says U.S. citizens and foreigners. And it means not immigrants, not state citizens. So it's really, are we overstanding what we are reading? Clearly not. Number 7, presumption of court of guardians. Presumption that you may be listed as a resident of a ward or a local government area and have listed on
They
your...
really should get rid of selective service. Well, Trump's probably going to invade Greenland and Canada, so he needs to get a bunch of broccoli-haired Zoomers into his ranks. So I don't think they're going to hand that anytime soon.
passport, the letter P, means you're a pauper and therefore under the guardian powers of the
But
government
yes, they should. I don't think the draft is reasonable or fair.
and its agents as courts of guardians. In other words, you're incompetent. That minor estate, Secession Trust Act of 1666, this is how they converted all
If
land.
you can't convince enough people to join your military, maybe you're doing bad things with your military and treating service members badly. Have you considered?
To be able to be taken later. Why? Because you're presumed to be dead and lost at sea after 7 years.
I think decades of having veterans tell younger people don't join the military, they treat you like crap, and they'll ruin your life, and they won't give you health care. I think that has made a lot of people not want to join the military.
After the age of 18, if you do not come back to claim you're a minor estate, you're a voter. You're never going to be an elector. You have to understand the difference of what's being described in these two constitutions.
Yeah, Quakers have, I believe, successfully claimed pacifism as part of their religion and exemption or something.
Between a Fourth Amendment citizen and a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, British territorial subject, and property of the Vatican.
That's all right, Dr. Darlin Lamb Chop. We're going to be done in a sec anyway.
This is why the Mahto tribe is owned by Yahuwah. Mahto Ministries. because they cannot claim that we belong to their foreign Elohim. We belong to the Most High and His Son. We follow their laws. Why? Because it's our right in the Republic to do so peacefully and lawfully. Let's continue. 8. Presumption of Court of Trustees is that members of the private bar guild presume you accept the office of trustee as a public servant and government employee just by attending a Roman court. Why? Because you're considered to be a government employee as a
Roman court? United States court is not a Roman court. My understanding is like the French court is much more similar to a Roman court than anything in the United States.
U.S. citizen.
We have an adversarial justice system. I don't think that's how it worked in Rome.
That's why you have to pay taxes. That's why you have to have a driver's license, even though you may not be engaged in hauling products, people, or working for the government. If you are a U.S. military veteran and your DD-214 has not been altered by you going back and correcting it, you're still assumed to be under the authority and jurisdiction of the U.S. military.
Phoenix Leftist, thanks for gifting a sub to Danny Boyd the Great. Much
You're
appreciated.
still considered to be recallable at any
Only 10 subs away from halfway to our goal.
time. Why did we have a draft? Because we had enough ignorant Americans that did not understand that they were talking to their subjects.
Okay. I think we're done with Mahto today. Jesus Christ. I know we've done a lot of Mahto lately with the recent focus on him, and today as well. We'll take a little break from him for a while unless he does something really out there. But, I don't know. I was feeling it today. France is inquisitorial. Rome evolved over time. Okay. I've heard, like, French legal dramas are just really bizarre to watch as an American because of how different their legal system is. Makes me want to watch some French legal dramas. Love you too, Mr. Blast. I hope you all have a good night. Like I said, I work really early tomorrow. I am still going to try and stream tomorrow. If work is really hard, I might not end up being able to, but I will do my best to stream tomorrow. If not, then I will see you Saturday. But I'm going to try my hardest to not get exhausted tomorrow and not be able to. Hope you have a good night, Just a Peach. Hope Green Guy does too. Alright, have a great night, everyone. See y'all later. I'm gonna go, sure. Alright, bye, everyone.